Chapter 443. Rumble. The rapidly flowing water ferociously smashed into the pool below, emitting a thunderous rumbling sound. The water splashed in all directions and shot onto the rocks on both sides of the pool. After a few more bounces and revolutions, it irrigated a cluster of flowers that emitted an enchanting fragrance around the rocks. The bean-sized water droplets intimately clung onto the flower petals like dew. Although they appeared as if they were about to slide off, they were sticky and firm, as if they were filled with some sort of suction force, tightly clinging onto the flower petals. Hum hum hum. Suddenly, an irritating buzzing sound was emitted from the dense mountain forest. The buzzing sound grew closer and closer, gradually becoming clearer and louder. It was as if a huge beast was rushing over. At the same time, the trees in the vicinity also gradually started to tremble amidst the intense buzzing sound, scattering light leaves. As the earth trembled, the small pool was unable to avoid the calamity of the fish in the pond. It tightly clung onto the flower petals. The sparkling and translucent water droplets also dripped down amidst the trembling, soaking the soil below. At the same time, the figure disappeared. Ha ha! Little bitch! You dare to steal this young master's item. When I bring you back today, I will definitely let you taste the feeling of not being able to live or die. Among the group of half-martial emperors flying forward, a young man wearing a brocade robe had a sinister expression on his face. The corners of his mouth were lifted into an evil smile as he spoke with a sharp voice. As he spoke, the man's body, which was flying forward, shook once again. His feet suddenly stepped on a tree trunk below him. Wood shavings shot out, and the man's body suddenly shot forward. The few old men in front of him also shook their bodies at the same time. With a lightning-like speed, they swiftly rushed forward. At the front of this group of people, within the dense forest, at this very moment, there was a young lady wearing a light blue long dress. Her figure was graceful, and her body was as light as a swallow. Being chased by the group of people behind her, she was like a panicked little deer as she rapidly ran through the forest. At this moment, a serious expression was present on the young girl's elegant face. Faced with this group of people that were like maggots attached to bones, it was truly too difficult for her, a mere 4-star half-martial emperor, to escape from them. Even so, the young girl's heart was filled with determination. She firmly believed that as long as she could hold on for a little longer, someone would definitely come to save her. Unfortunately, even though the young girl had such intentions, the group of people behind her did not wish for her to continue venturing deeper into the Shilin mountain range. That was because they knew that if this continued, they would reach the depths of the Shilin mountain range. That was not a place they could easily reach. Whoosh! Accompanied by a sharp sound of rushing wind, a strong wind suddenly attacked from the left side of the young girl, causing her expression to change instantly. Haha, little girl, this game ends here. That is not a place you should go. The hoarse old voice was unhurriedly transmitted into the young girl's ears, causing her expression to instantly turn pale. She did not expect that this old man's speed would actually become so frightening in an instant. Could it be that he had not used his full strength earlier? Just as the young girl was about to increase her speed and charge forward, the ghost-like old man by her side extended his hand. His withered bone-like hand claw mercilessly and violently imprinted itself on the young girl's back. Frightening Do Chi instantly erupted. With this old man's strength, attacking the young girl was a complete suppression. The frightening Do Chi invaded the young girl's body in the blink of an eye and scattered the Do Chi within the young girl's body with a destructive force, causing the young girl to be unable to use her Do Chi for a period of time after she was injured. Grug! The young girl's pretty face immediately turned pale after being seriously injured. Her lovely body staggered in the air and her mouth involuntarily spat out a large mouthful of fresh blood. The aura of her entire body instantly fell to rock bottom. However, it was unexpected that the young girl did not even have the slightest chance to resist the palm of the old man. It was difficult to imagine just how frightening the strength of this old man was. At the same time that the young girl was seriously injured, her delicate body also fell to the empty ground below. Her lovely body rolled and half of her body fell into the water. The icy clear water swiftly soaked the long dress of the young girl. At the same time, it also caused the nearly unconscious latter to recover some consciousness. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a mountain cave not far in front of her. There was a little fluorescent light flickering deep within the mountain cave. From the looks of it, there should be someone inside. The young girl held on to her final hope as her delicate lovely body forcefully climbed out of the water. Her long dress, which had been soaked by the water, tightly clung to the exquisite body of the young girl. Her perfect figure was completely revealed at this moment. However, at this very moment, this young girl did not have the time to bother about this. The young girl's footsteps quickly staggered towards the mountain cave. Behind her, the group of people also followed closely. They formed a half-circle around the young girl and the mountain cave. The group of people wore cold smiles as they looked at the staggering young girl. The man in the brocade robe, who had spoken earlier, currently had an especially evil smile on his feminine face. His eyes, which were looking at the young girl, were filled with a fiery expression. The young girl took a few minutes to walk a dozen steps. The group of people behind her quietly observed everything, and quietly waited for the man in the brocade robe to give the order. Finally, the young girl staggered to the front of the mountain cave. Her misty eyes faintly saw a person walking out of the mountain cave. While hope flickered in her heart, the young girl's injured body could not help but fall forward. At the same time, within the mountain cave, Xiao Yan's footsteps also continued to walk forward. The dusky environment within the mountain cave caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily squint his eyes before exiting the cave. His vision also became dusky. The instant Xiao Yan opened his eyes again, the delicate and lovely body that suddenly appeared in front of him caused his heart to be immediately startled. By the time Xiao Yan regained his senses, the water-like delicate and lovely body had already fallen onto Xiao Yan's body. The long dress, which had been soaked by the water, stuck to Xiao Yan's chest. This instant iciness caused Xiao Yan's heart to feel a piercing pain, as if it was being pricked by needles. At the same time, a unique fragrance that belonged to a young girl also pounced on Xiao Yan's face. Immediately, Xiao Yan regained his senses. He quickly raised his hands and pushed the young girl away from his chest. In the blink of an eye, the expression on Xiao Yan's face abruptly stiffened. The soft feeling just now caused him to completely regain his senses. The person in front of him that he had pushed away seemed to be a girl. The hand that he had pushed forward unconsciously clenched. Only then did he slowly withdraw his hand with a red face. The young girl, on the other hand, fell to the entrance of the cave with a bang and completely fainted. Why is it you? At this moment, a voice filled with resentment sounded from outside the cave. Xiao Yan frowned. Only then did he raise his head to look. He discovered that there was actually another group of people outside the cave. When Xiao Yan's gaze landed on the face of the young man in the brocade robe in the crowd, he finally could not help but let out a cold laugh. So it's you. What a coincidence. This young man in the brocade robe was the owner of the sky-penetrating pavilion in Mulberry Town outside the Shilin mountain range, the so-called young master of the Sun family. Chapter 444. I have to say, we are truly enemies on a narrow road. Brat, I let you escape last time. This time, the heavens have allowed you to meet this young master again. Don't even think about leaving alive. The embroidered-robed man stared at Xiao Yan with a cold expression. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he slowly walked forward. He walked to the front of the crowd and sneered at Xiao Yan, who was at the entrance of the cave. Oh, is that so? You think you can do it? Or those two old men? You can't even catch up to me. Don't tell me you want to kill me? Xiao Yan sneered, revealing a row of white teeth. He looked at the two gray-robed old men beside the embroidered-robed man and sneered at the embroidered-robed man. When the two old men heard this, their old faces immediately turned ashen. One of them could not help but snort coldly. He was about to shout at Xiao Yan when, if they can't do it, what about me? Just as the gray-robed old man was about to open his mouth and furiously cry out at Xiao Yan, a somewhat hoarse old voice suddenly sounded from behind the man. As the voice sounded, a black-robed old man slowly walked out from behind the man and stood in front of the embroidered-robed man. Retreat! He coldly glanced at the two gray-robed old men on his left and right. The old man's tone was calm and cold as he reprimanded them. When the two heard this, they obediently retreated, even though their expressions were still unwilling. Xiao Yan's gaze landed on the black-robed old man before him. He could not help but raise his eyebrows slightly. He felt slightly surprised in his heart. However, he immediately said with a mocking expression, 9-star half-martial emperor. Hey, what? You can't touch me with an 8-star half-martial emperor, so you found a 9-star half-martial emperor to catch me? Brat, don't be so arrogant. Today, with Elder Quan here, neither you nor that little bitch can escape. The young man stared at Xiao Yan with a blade-like gaze. There was no need to explain the killing intent in his eyes. Xiao Yan had made him suffer the greatest pain in his life. Last time, he was unable to take revenge in time. Today, he would definitely not let Xiao Yan escape. Surround him for this young master. Don't let him escape again. As the explosive cry from the young man's mouth sounded, the people behind him also swiftly moved. Within a couple of leaps, they surrounded the cave that Xiao Yan was in until not even a drop of water could pass through. If Xiao Yan wanted to escape, he would have to enter the cave. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to charge out. Among the crowd, the two gray-robed elders were the first to bear the brunt. Looking at their pair of devouring eyes, it seemed that they could not wait to rush towards Xiao Yan. However, Xiao Yan had a calm expression when faced with such a terrifying lineup that ordinary people would not be able to face. The smile at the corners of his mouth did not diminish because of the crowd before him. Instead, it grew wider. His pitch-black and calm eyes flickered with a heart-palpitating gorgeous heavenly flame. Hey, what's wrong? It's fine if you're bullying the young, but you actually want to bully the young with numbers? No wonder no one dares to make an enemy out of you big clans. The forces behind you are nothing, but you are very united. Xiao Yan parted his mouth and laughed out loud. The words in his mouth were filled with ridicule. These words caused everyone in front of him to feel a little uncomfortable when they heard them. Humph. The winner takes all. The process is not important. As long as we can make you stay here forever, so what if we bully the young with numbers? Who will know? No matter how much nonsense you speak, you're just afraid of death. What's the use of stalling for time? Ha 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 ha. The man in the brocade robe laughed arrogantly. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, like that of a wild beast. When the people before Xiao Yan heard this, the expression in their eyes could not help but change slightly. They did not expect their young master to be such an ambitious and ruthless existence. With such a decisive temperament, if he were to grow up, his clan would likely rise as well. However, when these words reached the ears of the black-robed elder in front of the man, the latter could not help but frown slightly. These words were indeed perverse, but when they came from his young master's mouth, it gave him a strange feeling. The black-robed elder shook his head in an undetectable manner. He helplessly thought that perhaps it was because his young master's strength was still too low. Perhaps in the future, he would also do something earth-shattering. However, other than these, there was another person that caused the black-robed elder to feel strange. That person was Xiao Yan, who was currently standing at the entrance of the cave. He had naturally sensed Xiao Yan's strength. Middle stage 5-star half-martial emperor. With such strength, even when compared to his young master, Xiao Yan could only be stronger. It was not difficult to imagine that after Xiao Yan grew up, his strength would definitely not be inferior to his young master's. However, the thing that caused him to feel strange the most was that the Xiao Yan before him gave him a feeling of déjà vu. He felt as if he had seen this young face somewhere before. However, due to the fact that so much time had passed, he was unable to figure out where he had seen it before. Humph! All of you charge. Kill this brat. However, before the black-robed elder could understand what was going on, the colorful robed man beside him suddenly cried out sternly. He ordered the crowd in front of him to immediately attack and kill Xiao Yan. Hearing this, the crowd glanced at one another. Immediately, they nodded heavily without the slightest hesitation. They all waved the dou qi in their hands and various different shaped weapons immediately landed in their hands. As their dou qi poured out, the crowd's bodies moved in unison. They invisibly formed an ingenious encirclement and ruthlessly charged toward Xiao Yan. Seeing the crowd charging toward him explosively, Xiao Yan's expression did not change. His heart was completely calm. His gaze indifferently swept over the crowd in front of him. Xiao Yan quietly muttered in his heart. 1, 2, 5, 7-star, 2, 8-star, haha. Laughing softly in his heart, Xiao Yan finally extended his white hand from under his sleeves just as the crowd in front of him was about to reach him. It was exposed to the sunlight that scattered down from the entrance of the cave. Immediately, he gently clenched his hand and an enormous black-colored ruler immediately appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. Haha, 7 people. 1 ruler for each person. Just nice. As the soft muttering was spat out from Xiao Yan's mouth, a beautiful heavenly flame suddenly surged out from Xiao Yan's wrist. It transformed into numerous beautiful fire snakes that swiftly wrapped around the enormous ruler in Xiao Yan's hand. After which, The enormous ruler was swung the instant the 7 figures landed. 7-layer. Sky-breaking ruler. As the earth-shaking explosive cry sounded, a frightening do-chi storm suddenly spread out in all directions with Xiao Yan's body as the center. The frightening strength directly destroyed the cave behind Xiao Yan in an instant. As this frightening aura spread out, the black-robed elder also instantly raised his gaze. His eyes revealed shock as he looked at Xiao Yan. His mouth was wide open as he said in shock, "Xiao Yan!" Chapter 445. 7-layered sky-breaking ruler. As the cry from Xiao Yan's mouth sounded, the terrifying ruler glow immediately carried a shocking energy storm as it swiftly shot out. Its aura filled the sky. The 7 ruler glows soared with the wind at the same time they shot out. In the blink of an eye, they had already reached a height of 1,000 feet. The brilliant heavenly flame swayed with the wind under the effect of the hurricane, appearing just like a heavenly flame burning the sky. A long fire tail was left behind as the ruler glows rushed through the sky. The 7 ruler glows were just like 7 fire banners that carried a shocking aura as they violently smashed toward the 7 people who were charging over. At the same time, the black-robed old man behind everyone revealed Xiao Yan's true identity with a single sentence. The 7 people could not help but be slightly startled in their hearts when they heard this. They did not expect that this black-robed young man in front of them was actually that Xiao Yan whom they had been searching for over a year. At this moment, they were once again facing Xiao Yan after a year. Perhaps their hearts were not afraid of Xiao Yan a moment ago, but now that they were aware of Xiao Yan's true identity, their hearts began to feel a little lost. Was it good or bad that they had met Xiao Yan today? It should be known that Xiao Yan had once exchanged blows with a genuine elite Do-Di. Although the other party had never revealed his true strength, just this point alone was sufficient to prove that Xiao Yan was extraordinary. Now, after over a year, it was impossible for Xiao Yan's strength to remain stagnant. Even though they were quite strong, they still felt a little helpless when facing Xiao Yan. This was not because they did not have confidence in their own strength. It was just that the things that Xiao Yan had done back then were really too shocking. Facing Xiao Yan, their strength had already been suppressed imperceptibly. Additionally, the 7-layered sky-breaking ruler that Xiao Yan had displayed at this moment possessed extraordinary strength. This had increased the fear in their hearts toward Xiao Yan. Bang! An intense bang reverberated across the sky like a shocking thunder. Following the repeated intense bangs, the bodies of the 7 high-rank bandy experts in the midair flew backwards uncontrollably. They immediately smashed violently into the mountain forest behind them. Only after destroying a large area of the mountain forest 1,000 feet away, did they violently collide with a thick tree trunk with serious injuries and faint. With just one attack, he had defeated 7 bandy experts. From this, one could roughly see the fighting strength that Xiao Yan currently possessed. Of course, there was naturally some exaggeration in defeating 7 bandy experts with just one attack. After all, if the minds of the 7 people had not been disturbed earlier, perhaps Xiao Yan would not have been able to heavily injure them with just one attack when he used his full strength. However, no matter what, Xiao Yan had accomplished such an astonishing feat after the 7 people were heavily injured. The black-robed old man and the embroidered-robed man who were the only ones left on the scene looked at Xiao Yan in shock. This was especially so for the embroidered-robed man. The ferocious expression on his face had long since disappeared. At this moment, what appeared on his face was deep fear. Never had he imagined that this fellow who seemed to be around the same age as him and possessed strength that was only slightly stronger than him would actually be able to defeat 7 high-rank quasi-emperors with a single strike. He even didn't dare believe that the scene before him was just a hallucination of his. Chi! The black-robed old man took half a step to the side and blocked the gold-robed man behind him. A grave expression involuntarily flashed across his eyes as he looked at Xiao Yan. He had also never imagined that the legendary Xiao Yan would actually be this frightening. He involuntarily began to doubt the battle from a year ago. Did the 4 Do-Di experts really not use their true strength back then? Why was it that this black-robed young man before him possessed a true fighting strength that far exceeded his own cultivation? After witnessing the scene from earlier, this black-robed old man did not dare to be careless in his heart. Being able to defeat 5 high-rank bandy experts with just one attack meant that Xiao Yan possessed a fighting strength that was comparable to a 9-star bandy expert. However, at the same time, this black-robed old man also believed that Xiao Yan had not taken out all of his trump cards. One must not treat Xiao Yan as an ordinary 5-star bandy when fighting with him. One must give 120% of one's attention. Otherwise, It would be difficult to say just who would emerge victorious today. Brat, it is unexpected that the four great sects have been searching for you for a year. Unexpectedly, you have already arrived at the Shilin mountain range. The black-robed old man narrowed his eyes. A pair of shady old eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan. His heart did not dare to relax even a little. Haha, that's right. According to your words, I have already hidden in the Shilin mountain range for an entire year. This is all thanks to you. Xiao Yan smiled in a non-committal manner. His expression was extremely indifferent. I believe that you will not need to continue hiding soon because the people from the four great sects will definitely not give you the chance to hide. The black-robed old man slowly retreated, and the brocade-robed man behind him also hurriedly retreated. The arrogant expression from before had already disappeared, and he was like a frightened deer. Left and right, he could only wait for the black-robed old man to protect him. Haha! Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan involuntarily laughed out loud. The fellow who had previously said that he would kill him had unexpectedly become a completely different person in the blink of an eye. Elder Quan. The embroidered-robed man's complexion was ashen. His heart was filled with fear. Since Xiao Yan was able to seriously injure those 7 high-level half-emperors with a single strike of his ruler, then he would definitely be able to kill him with a single strike of his ruler. Without these retainers by his side, it would be difficult for him to move an inch in the Shilin mountain range. After all, the weakest magical beast in this place was a 6-star half-emperor. Therefore, the only person he could rely on right now was the black-robed old man in front of him. Kid, we will remember today's matter. In the future, there will definitely be people who will come looking for you. The black-robed old man's gaze was serious as he threatened Xiao Yan. Then do you think that I will let you leave? Xiao Yan's gaze was indifferent. Killing intent gradually surged within his calm and unwavering eyes. Humph, even if you can challenge those of a higher cultivation level, do you think that it is possible for you to defeat this old man with a single strike? The black-robed old man's tone did not yield in the slightest. As he spoke, his old eyes faintly flickered. The dou qi within his body was instantly raised. His feet lightly stepped on the ground and a black energy halo rapidly spread out in all directions. Domain of darkness. Seeing the old man's domain, Xiao Yan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Even with Xiao Yan's current experience, he had only seen dark-attributed dou qi once. However, even if that was the case, it was still a useless action in the end. Xiao Yan faintly smiled. His body slightly tilted forward and he took a step forward. As Xiao Yan took a step forward, the heavenly flame beneath Xiao Yan's feet surged. The flame domain spread out and collided with the old man's domain of darkness. Chapter 446. Bang! The two fists collided and a frightening power spread out. The surrounding space immediately collapsed as buzzing sounds swept out in all directions. At this moment, the expressions of Xiao Yan and the black-robed old man became increasingly gloomy. After the collision, the two of them turned around in unison. Xiao Yan bent his elbow and turned around to send another attack toward the old man. Humph! With a cold snort, the old man was also not to be outdone. As his body turned around, he sent another palm strike toward Xiao Yan. Bang! Faced with the black-robed old man before him, Xiao Yan did not have the slightest trace of fear on his face. Every punch and palm strike was a killing move. Every attack was aimed at the old man's vital points. In a short period of time, the two of them had already exchanged several hundred blows. Dou qi shot out in all directions and energy storms engulfed the area one after another. The battle between the two of them had also become more and more intense. As he violently collided with Xiao Yan time and time again, the black-robed old man could not help but feel a sense of graveness in his heart. He had never imagined that Xiao Yan's battle power would actually be this frightening. Although he was only a 5-star half-martial emperor, the power that he truly unleashed was actually something that even he would find difficult to defeat. Furthermore, in each of their collisions, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame would always cause him to feel extremely vexed. Once he came into contact with it, his power would be greatly weakened by the heavenly flame. Thus, every time he attacked, he would have to exhaust a lot of dou qi. Furthermore, the effect of his dou qi was negligible. Aside from this, Xiao Yan's physical strength also caused this black-robed old man to feel incomparably shocked. Each time he collided with Xiao Yan, the latter's frightening force would cause the old man's arm, which collided with Xiao Yan's, to instantly become numb. This unknowingly affected his strength. The black-robed old man admitted that he had only seen Xiao Yan's frightening physical strength from powerful magical beasts in his entire life. Never had he imagined that a human would actually possess a frightening physical strength comparable to magical beasts. In fact, the old man even suspected that the black-robed young man before him was truly a human. Boom! After another intense collision, Xiao Yan and the black-robed old man each retreated 100 feet. The two of them looked at each other from afar. Xiao Yan's face was calm, and there was still a smile on the corner of his mouth. However, his breathing seemed to be a little hurried. On the other hand, the black-robed old man's wrinkled face had an incomparably grave expression. His left hand, which had fiercely clashed with Xiao Yan earlier, was trembling uncontrollably. His entire left arm was no longer under the old man's control. The dou qi in the old man's body circulated rapidly, swiftly dispelling the numbness on his left arm. Only then did the old man turn his head to look behind him. At this moment, the man in the embroidered robe was also looking at Xiao Yan in the air with a face of disbelief. His pair of dark black eyes were filled with shock. "Young master, hurry up and leave this place. I'll hold him back. Once you leave, I'll naturally find you." After the old man's words sounded, he realized that the man in the embroidered robe was actually unmoved. It was as if he had not heard anything. The old man's face sank. He could not help but feel a sense of disappointment in his heart. He suddenly waved his sleeve and a hurricane whistled. The old man faced the man in the embroidered robe and shouted sternly, "Sun Che!" With this stern shout, Sun Che was like a bird that had been startled by the twang of a bow. The first time his gaze saw the black-robed old man, the fear in his eyes became even denser. Only when he completely sobered up did he heave a sigh of relief in his heart. "Go! Leave this place. This kid is not an ordinary person. We can't attack by force today. Leave this place and we'll make a decision after we return." Seeing that Sun Che was actually so weak, the black-robed old man wished that he could give him a slap in his heart. However, due to the current situation, he could only shout angrily at him. Hearing the old man's words, the expression on Sun Che's face was first shocked. Soon after, he recovered and hurriedly nodded his head. His figure turned around and quickly fled out of the Shilin mountain range. From the beginning until the end, Xiao Yan had a faint smile on his face as he looked at the two people before him. Only when Sun Che turned around and fled did he let out a soft laugh. He gently twisted his neck and a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. He said to the old man with a smile, "Don't worry, there's no need to worry about him. Today, none of you can think of leaving." With Xiao Yan's current strength, he had to use his full strength when facing a 9-star half-emperor. Naturally, he was unwilling to let the 4 great sects know of his whereabouts. Therefore, in order to protect himself, Xiao Yan was destined to start a massacre today. Hearing what Xiao Yan said, the black-robed old man couldn't help but let out a sinister laugh. A trace of disdain appeared in the gaze with which he looked at Xiao Yan. Although Xiao Yan was able to rely on his powerful fighting strength to fight a 9-star half-martial emperor to a standstill with him, a 9-star half-martial emperor, he was confident that this was already Xiao Yan's limit. After all, he was only a 5-star half-martial emperor. It was impossible for him to defeat a 9-star half-martial emperor, much less kill one. "Humph, Xiao Yan, this old man admits that your battle power is indeed very strong. However, do you think that it's possible for you to defeat this old man with just you?" The black-robed old man sneered as his sinister old eyes stared at Xiao Yan. "Haha, if I didn't have absolute certainty, I wouldn't have said those words." Xiao Yan smiled faintly. His gaze was indifferent as he looked at the black-robed old man. The meaning within his words caused the latter to immediately feel a chill in his heart. The Xiao Yan before him seemed to truly possess that sort of ability. However, immediately after, a sinister expression appeared on the old man's face. The gaze with which he looked at Xiao Yan also became ruthless. If it truly reached that stage, he would make Xiao Yan pay the price no matter what. "Brat, if you have the ability, come and give it a try." The old man spoke to Xiao Yan with a sinister tone. At the same time, the dou qi within his body began to rapidly circulate throughout his entire body. His shriveled hand suddenly clenched tightly, and a long spear instantly appeared in his hand. Huff! Faced with this, Xiao Yan let out a long sigh of relief. The dou qi that he had released from his body was actually completely sucked back into his body. His aura was also rapidly withdrawn. His eyes slowly closed as he stood where he was. It was as if he was waiting for the old man to come and kill him. This manner was actually completely different from when he was in the big battle earlier. Seeing this strange scene, the old man could not help but frown slightly. A suspicion rose in his heart. For a moment, he did not know whether to move or not to move. It was only after 10 breaths that the old man saw that Xiao Yan still did not move that an unusual thought finally appeared in his heart. Ha! The old man cried out explosively in his heart. His feet suddenly stepped on empty air. His body flashed and transformed into a bolt of lightning. With a thunderous momentum, he viciously charged towards Xiao Yan. In the blink of an eye, the old man's body had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The dark black long spear in his hand shook violently and the tip of the spear pierced towards the spot between Xiao Yan's eyebrows. However, in the next instant, when the sharp tip of the spear was less than an inch away from Xiao Yan's head, the tightly shut eyes of Xiao Yan suddenly opened them. At the same time, a dense white flame suddenly swept out from within Xiao Yan's body and sent the black-robed old man flying with a single blow. Chapter 447. The dense white flames turned into a firestorm. With Xiao Yan's body as the center, the firestorm began to rapidly spread in all directions in the sky. The frightening power of the firestorm struck the black-gowned old man's body. The spear in the old man's hand was shattered. At the instant the firestorm arrived, the old man's chest was forcibly flattened and caved in. Faintly, one could hear muffled sounds from his body. At the same time, the old man's malevolent face instantly turned deathly pale. There was no trace of blood on his face at all. The expression on his face appeared to be one of extreme pain. Unable to contain himself, he vomited dark red blood from his mouth. The blood contained a large amount of fragments. Those were the fragments of his internal organs that had been crushed. Bang! Following a bang, the old man's body was immediately sent flying like a soccer ball. He was sent flying backwards. In the end, he ruthlessly smashed into the mountain forest below, creating an enormous crater in the ground below. As for the old man's aura, it rapidly weakened. In the blink of an eye, the 9-star half-martial emperor who had been very aggressive a moment ago had become a seriously injured person. At this moment, the old man's heart was filled with shock. With merely a strand of aura, he had been seriously injured. It was difficult to imagine exactly how frightening Xiao Yan's current strength was. No matter how much he thought about it, he was unable to understand how Xiao Yan, who was clearly only a 5-star half-martial emperor, was able to explode with the power to crush a 9-star half-martial emperor. Exactly why was that? At this moment, Xiao Yan's entire body was surrounded by a dense white flame in the sky. His originally dark black eyes had turned pure white at this moment. His black hair had also turned into a dense white color in the blink of an eye. The aura on his body was so frightening that it caused one to have difficulty imagining it. In short, the current Xiao Yan was like a completely different person compared to the Xiao Yan from earlier. Xiao Yan had an indifferent expression on his face. With a thought, Xiao Yan appeared in the sky above the old man. The old man at the bottom of the enormous crater stared at Xiao Yan in the sky with his heavy injuries. He felt incomparable fear in his heart. Swish! In the next instant, a rushing wind sound was emitted and Xiao Yan's body had already appeared in front of the old man. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the old man. Xiao Yan's dense white eyes could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Immediately, it turned into a joyous glow that flashed across his eyes. Upon seeing Xiao Yan's sudden appearance, the old man's originally pale face became even more lifeless. The fear in his heart was simply indescribable. You are. The old man roared madly in his heart, but his body was no longer under his control. Even though he wanted to, he could not voice the last question in his heart. Ha! Seeing this, Xiao Yan smiled faintly. At this moment, the expression on his face was no different from before. I've said it before. None of you can leave today. The old man felt as though he was in a cold cellar when he heard the calm words from Xiao Yan's mouth. The horror in his heart could not be any greater. Xiao Yan sensed the vast and endless strength within his body as he stood in front of the old man. A longing involuntarily surged in his heart. This was a true expert. Given his current strength, he was still too weak. That's right. At this moment, the strength that Xiao Yan controlled originated from Gu Yu's body. A cold smile involuntarily rose in Xiao Yan's heart when he saw the horrified expression on the old man's face. This old man was just like his master. They used their strength to bully the weak. Such a person would ultimately not have a good ending. Today, Xiao Yan had killed him. It could be said that he had done the people a favor. Xiao Yan lifted his hand and was about to attack. However, the expression on Xiao Yan's face involuntarily changed a moment later. He saw that the old man's body was rapidly swelling. The aura within his body had suddenly become unusually wild and violent. Is this fellow planning to self-destruct? Xiao Yan's eyes hardened. He did not expect this fellow to be so decisive. He was willing to risk his life to make Xiao Yan a scapegoat. Unfortunately, Xiao Yan would not allow him to continue in this manner. Xiao Yan coldly laughed. He suddenly pressed his finger forward and pressed it against the old man's brow. At the same time, a dense white flame followed Xiao Yan's finger and swiftly entered the old man's body. Under the wild and violent strength of the heavenly flame, the wild and violent Dou Qi was naturally unable to block it. Within a couple of breaths, the Dou Qi within the old man's body was completely incinerated by the bone-chilling flame. Soon after, it was the old man's body. Ugh! Following a painful roar that contained unwillingness, the old man's body was completely incinerated into nothingness by the heavenly flame. At this moment, a 9-star Ban Emperor had died in Xiao Yan's hands. Xiao Yan indifferently withdrew his gaze. With a thought, he once again soared into the sky. His gaze looked in the direction that Sun Che had fled in as the corners of his mouth revealed a slight smile. Heh, when my luck comes, it's truly unstoppable. Sky extinction steps. Let me try and see what exactly it feels like to reach the advanced wind-quaking stage. Just a moment ago, Xiao Yan had inadvertently allowed the sky extinction steps that he had painstakingly trained for several months to reach the advanced wind-quaking stage. At the same time, Xiao Yan's speed had also abruptly risen to a whole new level. Smiling in his heart, Xiao Yan's white palm slowly drew across the empty space in front of him. As he felt the flowing wind from his fingertips, Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed. Soon after, with a thought, Xiao Yan's body had already appeared several hundred feet away. When he turned his head to look, Xiao Yan was still able to see a nearly solid afterimage where he had stood earlier. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with joy when he saw this scene. Although he had borrowed Gu Yu's strength, Xiao Yan was certain that with his current speed and strength, he would not suffer from Tianying's speed if he were to face him again. Xiao Yan was able to cross such a great distance with just a random flash. After turning his head, Xiao Yan prepared to move and chase after Sun Che. Once Sun Che fled, Xiao Yan would have to prepare to face the 4 great sects instead. This was not something that he wished to see. However, just as he was about to move, Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned. He seemed to have forgotten that there was still that fellow who had brought him trouble. A thought passed through his mind and his spiritual strength swiftly spread out. At the same time, in the ruins below, which were filled with scars from a big battle, a delicate body that appeared extremely weak due to her injuries was lifted from a rock by Xiao Yan's invisible spiritual strength. She slowly drifted in front of Xiao Yan. Looking at the delicate body in front of him, Xiao Yan involuntarily recalled the soft feeling when he had pushed the young lady with both hands earlier. This was because the young lady had fallen in front of Xiao Yan. Hence, it went without saying where his hands had landed. Immediately, Xiao Yan's old face swiftly turned completely red as though he had a fever. He hurriedly coughed twice. Only then did he recall that he had yet to finish off Sun Che. If he were to escape, there would be great trouble. Xiao Yan's expression finally recovered when he thought of this. With a flick of his finger, a black lightning bolt instantly shot out and swiftly chased in the direction that Sun Che had fled. Chapter 448. In the sky, Xiao Yan looked at the Northern King, who had returned from the distance. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth revealed a densely cold smile. His eyes descended and looked at the 7 people in the mountain forest below. When Xiao Yan did things, he never liked to leave behind any possible trouble for himself. Even though these 7 people were seriously injured and logically speaking, it was impossible for them to survive in the Shilin mountain range. There was always an exception to everything. If one of them really managed to leave the Shilin mountain range alive, the final result would similarly bring Xiao Yan an endless amount of trouble. In order to avoid any future trouble, Xiao Yan would naturally not let any of them off. Swoosh! A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind as he borrowed Gu Yu's strength. The instant the sky extinction step was unleashed, Xiao Yan had already appeared in front of one of the grey-robed old men among the 7 people. The expression on the grey-robed old man's face suddenly became horrified in the face of Xiao Yan, who had suddenly appeared. However, before he could open his mouth, Xiao Yan immediately flicked his finger. A dense white ray of light instantly entered the old man's brow. The old man's widened mouth, which was about to speak, suddenly froze at this moment. Soon after, a thick layer of hard ice swiftly formed on the surface of the old man's body. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was sealed in ice. Xiao Yan's body once again flashed after leaving behind a soft snort. He had already appeared in front of another person. The layer of hard ice that wrapped around the gray-robed old man shattered with a bang, after Xiao Yan's afterimage disappeared. It turned into a pile of ice fragments that were filled with a cold aura. The gray-robed old man within it was nowhere to be seen. Under the effect of the bone-chilling flame, the interior of the old man's body had been completely incinerated by the heavenly flame, even though he appeared to be sealed in ice on the surface. An 8-star half-martial emperor, an expert who could be said to be a peak existence in the entire western region, was actually unable to even make a sound before a heavenly flame. This was something that caused one to be unable to help but feel extremely terrified upon thinking about it. A heavenly flame was really terrifying to the extreme. As the most overbearing energy in the world, the terror of a heavenly flame was undoubtedly revealed in this short period of time. The gray-robed, old man's heart was suddenly startled when he saw Xiao Yan. With that old man in front of him, this gray-robed, old man did not dare to hesitate even a little in his heart. His heart knew that he would definitely die. Therefore he acted decisively. The moment Xiao Yan appeared, the old man's hands quickly formed a series of complicated seals. Then, he clenched his hand into a fist and smashed it hard on his chest. A large mouthful of blood immediately spurted out and quickly condensed into a blood talisman in front of him. In the blink of an eye, it entered the old man's body. The very next moment, the old man's aura also increased abruptly at the moment when the crimson symbol entered his body. His strength of a mid-stage 8-star half-martial emperor had actually been forcibly increased to that of a late-stage 8-star half-martial emperor in a short period of several breaths. Without hesitation, the old man quickly retreated to the back. Xiao Yan's expression did not change even a little when he saw the old man's aura suddenly soar in the blink of an eye. His eyes narrowed as he softly muttered. He narrowed his eyes and muttered, "Secret technique? However, that's all there is to it." Xiao Yan's voice had just sounded when he involuntarily let out a soft huh. He did not expect that this old man's hand would once again form a seal while he was withdrawing explosively. At the same time, the dou qi within his body suddenly became wild and violent. Judging from his appearance, this old man was planning to self-detonate. Self-detonate? Humph, even that guy couldn't do it. Thus you think you can? Xiao Yan sneered. In the next instant, Xiao Yan appeared before the old man again. Before the old man could finish forming the hand seal, he saw Xiao Yan again. Suddenly, he felt fear in his heart. With such a close distance, if Xiao Yan were to attack him, he would not even have the opportunity to self-detonate. Heh, you want to self-detonate? Allow me to help you. With a cold laugh, Xiao Yan suddenly extended his hand. His white hand abruptly clenched toward the old man. In the next instant, the old man felt a frighteningly large power suddenly being transmitted from the space around him. That frightening power was so strong that he did not even have the possibility of resisting it. Soon after, an extremely frightened expression was emitted from the old man's eyes. At the same time, that power instantly crushed his body and the dou qi within his body. Bang! A world-destroying energy storm violently swept through the mountain forest. Before this energy storm, the other 3 seriously injured 7-star half-martial emperors were also unable to escape the fate of being crushed to pieces. In an open space within the forest illuminated by the sunlight, Xiao Yan was sitting cross-legged on a piece of bluestone. The flame formula qi within his body was slowly circulating, recovering the dou qi that Xiao Yan had consumed earlier. At this very moment, on the grass not far away from him, a beautiful young lady with white skin and wearing a long skirt was lying flat on the grass. Her soft long hair scattered in all directions, causing this young lady to appear even more gentle and beautiful. The young lady's eyes were tightly shut. Her pale face gradually recovered its rosy color under the effect of the medicinal pill. Soon after, her weak aura also recovered quite a bit. It was likely that the young lady would wake up soon. A cool breeze brushed past and the young lady's long hair fluttered in the wind. After the wind passed, the young lady's beautiful face was covered. The unconscious young lady's mind was fuzzy and she felt a sluggishness. A strand of hair covered the young lady's nose, causing the young lady's breathing to involuntarily become heavier. A moment later, the young lady, who felt that it was difficult to breathe, suddenly woke up from her unconscious state with a slightly flushed face. The weak and lovely body that was lying flat on the grass suddenly sat up. The young lady, who had woken up, immediately looked around her. When she discovered that Sun Che's group was not around, her heart finally sighed in relief. The worried expression on her pretty face also immediately disappeared. However, in the next moment, Xiao Yan's skinny figure appeared in the young lady's line of sight. When she saw Xiao Yan for the first time, the expression on the young lady's face could not help but be slightly startled. Immediately, she recalled that before she fainted, she seemed to have seen a human figure coincidentally walk out of the cave. At the same time that the young lady thought of this in her heart, she also vaguely recalled that at the last moment before she fainted, someone used both hands to push her away from the front. It was at that time that the hands of that person seemed to have coincidentally pushed her chest. Thinking of this, the young lady's still pale and moist pretty face immediately appeared to have been roasted by fire. It swiftly turned completely red. The shame and anger in the young lady's heart could not be any greater. Standing up with some difficulty, the young lady did not stop. Her delicate body moved and her light footsteps swiftly walked towards Xiao Yan. Following the swift movement of a pair of light and nimble feet, the young lady's graceful body had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the young lady's jade-like hand was raised into the air. With a face full of shame and anger, she viciously slapped Xiao Yan's delicate face. Immediately after. Pa. Chapter 449. Pa. With a crisp sound, the smooth jade-like hand was blocked in mid-air by an even more powerful white hand. Seeing this scene, the expression on the young lady's face involuntarily changed slightly. She swiftly raised her eyes and looked over, only to discover that Xiao Yan, who originally had his eyes tightly shut, had unknowingly opened his eyes wide and was staring at her. This young lady, no matter what, I have saved you. Don't tell me that this is how you treat your savior? Looking at the young lady's crystal-like beautiful eyes, Xiao Yan frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Bastard! You touched this young lady and now you actually dare to say that you are this young lady's savior. From what I see, you are in cahoots with that group of people." Seeing Xiao Yan's confident manner, the young lady's heart was filled with shame and anger. She angrily scolded Xiao Yan. The half of her lotus root-like white arm that was exposed from her sleeves exerted force as she struggled to pull her delicate jade-like hand away from Xiao Yan's. Seeing this, Xiao Yan finally released his right hand that was holding the latter's wrist. However, immediately after, Xiao Yan heard the words that came from the young lady's mouth. The expression on his old face immediately turned red. He hurriedly lowered his head and coughed a few times, wanting to pretend that he did not know. However, because Xiao Yan was sitting cross-legged on a tall rock, even though he had already lowered his head, his red face still fell into the young lady's eyes. Seeing this scene, the young lady's heart was instantly enraged. She once again raised her jade-like hand and was about to wave it at Xiao Yan again. "Hey, little girl, don't go overboard. You said that I touched you. Fine, tell me, where did I touch you?" The sudden voice caused the young lady's hand to slightly pause. However, immediately after, when she clearly heard the words from Xiao Yan's mouth, the expression on her pretty face quickly turned crimson red. She was so angry that she could not speak. The young lady had never imagined that the black-robed man in front of her, who looked rather decent, would actually be such a scoundrel. A moment ago, his face clearly revealed an embarrassed expression. In just a short moment, why did he immediately change his words and deny it? Moreover, the words that Xiao Yan said also caused the young lady to be speechless in her heart. She was after all a girl. From the looks of this matter, her heart still possessed the restraint of a girl. Otherwise, if it was someone else, it was likely that they would have fought with Xiao Yan for a result just because their condition was not good. And it was precisely because of this that Xiao Yan's words suppressed the young lady. Otherwise, in order to make Xiao Yan admit his actions, could it be that the young lady really had to say to Xiao Yan that he touched her breasts? If that was the case, not to mention Xiao Yan, she would probably be embarrassed to death. And Xiao Yan had also grasped this point. Just now, he pretended that he did not do anything wrong and said to the young lady. In reality, Xiao Yan's heart had already been filled with doubts. But even so, when the young lady looked at Xiao Yan, her gaze was still filled with disbelief. She rolled her eyes at the latter, twisted her delicate body, and slowly walked towards the forest in the distance. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Soon after, he pretended to be the one who had suffered a loss. With an expression of displeasure, he lightly snorted at the young lady. With an indifferent tone he said, "Humph, no matter what, I have saved you. Yet, you slandered me the moment you opened your mouth. Not to mention this point, you actually did not even thank me. Alas, in this world, it is truly impossible to be a good person." With a sorrowful expression, Xiao Yan bitterly sighed. Then, he stood up in desolation and planned to walk in the opposite direction of the young lady. However, right at this moment, the young lady who had turned around to leave turned around again. Her long, shapely eyebrows narrowed. With her hands on her hips, she said to Xiao Yan with a stern voice, "Humph! Don't think that this young lady can't tell that your strength is merely that of a 5-star half-martial emperor. However, there is a 9-star half-martial emperor in the group that chased after this young lady. With merely you, how could you possibly escape from the clutches of that old man? The way I see it, you're simply in cahoots with that group of people. The reason why you didn't capture this young lady is likely because you have another purpose, right?" The body that had just turned around once again turned around. Xiao Yan looked at the young lady with a light smile on his face. Then, he rolled his eyes, and a ridiculing smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. He said, "Very well, since you insist that I'm in cahoots with that group of people, then I'll just return you to them. After all, you don't have the slightest bit of gratitude toward me, the person who saved your life. Thus, I might as well return you to them. I believe that they will definitely thank me." Xiao Yan smiled and actually walked toward the young lady. Seeing that Xiao Yan's expression did not appear to be joking, the young lady was slightly startled. It must be said that she was truly afraid that she would fall into the hands of that group of people again. Although she did not believe in the Xiao Yan in front of her, she still had some confidence when facing him. However, if she were to fall into the hands of that group of people, she would definitely not even have the opportunity to heal her injuries. As this thought flashed through her mind, the young lady hurriedly and secretly mobilized the little remaining do qi in her body. Immediately, the injuries that had yet to heal in her body were once again triggered. This caused the corners of the young lady's mouth to involuntarily twitch. However, in order to not fall into the hands of that group of people again, the young lady fiercely clenched her silver teeth and forcefully mobilized the do qi in her body. Her delicate body abruptly turned around, and with a movement of her body, she rapidly flew toward the mountain forest behind her. Seeing that the young lady had actually turned around and fled after hearing a single sentence from him, Xiao Yan immediately had a mocking smile on his face. However, he immediately appeared to have recalled something and frowned. His body moved, and he used the Sky Absolute Step to swiftly chase after her. Currently, the Sky Absolute Step had already broken through to the advanced wind movement realm under Xiao Yan's training. Just like that, Xiao Yan's speed had once again increased by a large margin. The current him was no longer afraid of the 9-star half-emperor Tianying, let alone chasing after a 4-star half-emperor young lady. In merely an instant, Xiao Yan had already appeared directly behind the young lady. The tip of his nose twitched slightly as he sniffed the fragrance that the young lady left behind in the air when she flew past. Xiao Yan quite enjoyed himself and smiled. After which, he opened his mouth to speak to the young lady in front of him. "Haha, hey," I said, "I'm lying to you. I've already killed that group of people. Even if you want to, you won't be able to return to their hands. There's no need for you to run so desperately." However, the young lady did not believe Xiao Yan's words in the slightest. In her eyes, Xiao Yan did not even have the ability to fight against a 7-star half-emperor. However, at this moment, Xiao Yan actually told her that he had killed a group of high-level half-emperors. Furthermore, there was even a 9-star half-emperor among them. In the young lady's ears, this was simply nonsense. Sensing that the distance between herself and Xiao Yan was growing closer and closer, the young lady's heart immediately hardened. All of the do qi within her body poured out at this moment. The speed of her delicate body flying forward also abruptly increased. The young lady's delicate body turned into a nimble bolt of lightning as she rapidly flew through the mountain forest. At the same time, the young lady's pretty face that had just recovered a bit of rosy color rapidly turned deathly pale. Until a certain moment, the young lady's body that was explosively rushing forward abruptly stopped. The injuries in her body once again erupted. Before the young lady could react, her vision turned black and she fainted in midair. At the same time, Xiao Yan hurriedly revealed himself from the void to the side and caught her in his bosom. Chapter 450. In the blink of an eye, it was already night time. At this moment, Xiao Yan was seated on a green rock in a cave that was filled with fluorescent light. In front of him, the crimson thousand-beast cauldron stood tall. Inside the cauldron, the heavenly flame rose. The temperature was terrifyingly high. Even though it was separated by the medicinal cauldron, one could still feel the scorching heat. Ugh! Suddenly, a soft moan sounded from within the cave. The voice was soft and smooth, as if a beauty had just woken up from a dream. At this moment, on a green stone bed a couple of dozen feet away from Xiao Yan, a beautiful young lady had coincidentally just woken up from her unconscious state. This young lady was the young lady who had once again sunk into an unconscious state in order to avoid Xiao Yan during the day. When the young lady woke up, her beautiful eyes trembled slightly as she slowly opened them. The first thing she saw was the ice-cold stone wall above her head. Immediately, the young lady recalled the events that had happened during the day. Immediately, the young lady's heart tightened slightly. She wanted to get up, but she realized that due to the worsening injuries in her body, she could not even move her body. Her originally weak and delicate body gave her a heavy feeling of weakness at this moment. When she realized this, the expression on the young lady's pale face changed slightly. If she was really sent back to Sun Che's group by that brat during the day, she would really be in deep trouble. When she thought of this, the young lady immediately clenched her silver teeth and endured the pain from her body. The young lady slowly turned her head and looked in the direction of the flickering light on the wall. In the next moment, the young lady's expression could not help but freeze slightly. The first thing that appeared in her line of sight was a huge crimson medicinal cauldron. The medicinal cauldron was engraved with various magical beasts. Even with the young lady's knowledge, she did not know the names of some of them. Immediately, Xiao Yan, who was wearing a black robe and sitting cross-legged, appeared in front of the young lady's beautiful eyes while fiddling with a beautiful heavenly flame. After being surprised for a moment, the young lady hurriedly looked elsewhere in the cave. However, she realized that there was only her and Xiao Yan in the cave. Immediately, the young lady understood in her heart. From the looks of it, Xiao Yan did not really hand her over to that group. It seemed that the words that Xiao Yan had said during the day were probably just a joke. When the young lady turned her head to look at Xiao Yan, the latter seemed to have sensed something. His slightly shut eyes slowly opened, and the movements of his hands also stopped as he looked at the young lady. Xiao Yan's gaze carelessly swept across the young lady's alluring lovely body. Finally, his gaze met the young lady's beautiful eyes. When the four eyes met, the expression on the young lady's pretty face hardened slightly. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, curled his lips slightly and said. Hearing Xiao Yan's question that he knew the answer to, the young lady actually blinked her quick-witted eyes in an uncharacteristic manner. Immediately after, she wanted to force herself to sit up. Perhaps she felt that this would make her feel much more comfortable. I feel that it's best if you don't move around. The injuries in your body have worsened. If you dare to move around, you might lose your life. Turning his head, Xiao Yan continued to focus on the medicinal cauldron in front of him. At the same time, he spoke to the young lady in an indifferent tone. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, a look of fear involuntarily emerged on the young lady's beautiful face. Her eyebrows slightly knitted together, the young lady gently curled her cute little mouth. After that, she helplessly lay back down obediently. In her boredom, the young lady could only look at Xiao Yan. Noticing his proficient fire control technique, the young lady could not help but feel astonished in her heart. She then looked at Xiao Yan's young face and exclaimed, "You're actually an alchemist." She did not expect that this black-robed young man, who looked to be about the same age as her, was not only stronger than her, but was also an alchemist. Furthermore, looking at his proficient fire control technique, his rank as an alchemist was probably not low. However, Xiao Yan remained indifferent in the face of this. It was not that he wanted to purposely show off his alchemist skills in front of this young lady. It was just that Xiao Yan had already helped her consume his final D-tier medicinal pill in order to heal her earlier. Currently, the injuries within this young lady's body had once again flared up and were even more serious than before. If she did not have the help of the D-tier medicinal pill, it was likely that this young lady's life would really be in danger. Although Xiao Yan was not a person who liked to do good deeds, this young lady's second serious injury was related to him. He could not just sit by and do nothing. Therefore, Xiao Yan had no choice but to refine a healing pill for her. Being ignored by Xiao Yan, the young lady immediately rolled her eyes at Xiao Yan. Then, she turned her gaze and looked at the crimson medicine cauldron in front of Xiao Yan. She was a little curious and surprised about the medicine cauldron in front of Xiao Yan. She did not expect that with her knowledge of demonic beasts, she could not recognize all the demonic beasts carved on the cauldron. Where did this medicine cauldron come from? Looking at the crimson medicine cauldron, the young lady frowned. She seemed to have some impression of this thing in her mind, but in the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. After a long while, when Xiao Yan had almost finished refining the medicinal ingredients in the medicine cauldron, the young lady's face seemed to suddenly remember something. The expression on her flawless face froze slightly. Immediately, her small face was filled with surprise as she looked at the medicine cauldron in front of Xiao Yan. Then, her gaze turned to Xiao Yan. Her small mouth opened slightly and her tone was filled with incomparable surprise. Your medicine cauldron is actually the 1000-beast cauldron that is ranked 6th on the heavenly cauldron list. Who exactly are you? Xiao Yan only frowned slightly when the 1000-beast cauldron was recognized. His hands did not stop moving, but he turned to look at the young lady. Seeing that Xiao Yan was finally moved, the young lady's pretty face could not help but raise a smile. However, when she saw Xiao Yan's slightly stern gaze, the smile on the young lady's pretty face gradually disappeared. Like a child who had made a mistake, she pouted and timidly withdrew her gaze. Seeing that the young lady actually revealed such a delicate appearance, Xiao Yan's heart actually softened. He sighed softly and then said to the young lady indifferently, "You've asked so many questions. You've asked so many questions. Don't you think that before asking someone else a question, you should tell them your name first? Moreover, I am your savior." Hearing this, the young lady cast a sidelong glance at Xiao Yan and pouted. "You're a big man. How can you be so petty and bully a weak girl like me? You're a dignified 4-star half-emperor. If you're also a weak girl, there won't be any experts on this continent." When Xiao Yan's words came out, the young lady's pretty face immediately froze. A crimson blush appeared on her fair little face. Soon after, she smiled embarrassedly and said, "All right. Who asked you to be my savior? Hee. Hello, I'm Murong Chanqian. Murong is my surname. Chanqian is my name." Chapter 451. After the two of them reported their names, Murong Chanqian curiously asked Xiao Yan a lot of questions. Xiao Yan patiently answered most of them. As for some of the questions that were related to Xiao Yan himself, they were either dodged by Xiao Yan or directly skipped over. After that, Xiao Yan once again concentrated on refining the medicinal pills in the medicinal cauldron in front of him. As for Murong Chanqian, she was bored to death as she laid on the stone bed. Although she wanted to get up, she could only helplessly and obediently lie back down when she thought of the injuries in her body. As time passed, the medicinal ingredients in the medicinal cauldron in front of Xiao Yan, which were originally close to 100 kinds of medicinal ingredients, had all turned into various kinds of powders or viscous liquids in the end. Refining medicinal ingredients was extremely easy for Xiao Yan. The only difference was that it required quite a bit of time. After a week of continuous refining, Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged on the green stone platform, suddenly opened his originally tightly shut eyes. At the same time, Xiao Yan raised his arm and suddenly waved his big sleeve. With a bang, the medicinal cauldron's lid opened. Following that, rays of light rapidly shot out from the medicinal cauldron. Immediately, under the control of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength, they fell into the jade bottle that Xiao Yan had prepared in advance. Huff! After doing all this, Xiao Yan finally let out a long sigh of relief. He slightly moved his body, which had been sitting for a long time, and was about to enter the next step of the refining process. However, just at this time, Murong Chanqian suddenly spoke to Xiao Yan. Her timid voice contained a bashful feeling. "That, Xiao Yan, I, Murong Chanqian stuttered for a while and said, 3 times in a row. But in the end, she still couldn't say anything clearly. Instead, her beautiful face that was as white as jade appeared to be crimson red at this moment. Seeing the young lady act in this manner, Xiao Yan could not help but frown slightly. He turned his head to look at the latter. Xiao Yan frowned slightly and a suspicious expression appeared on his face. His tone was somewhat impatient as he asked, "What's wrong? What's the problem?" During these few days when Xiao Yan was calmly refining the medicinal herbs, the young girl in front of him was not willing to be calm at all. She repeatedly asked Xiao Yan many questions, but Xiao Yan ignored her and continued to refine the medicinal herbs in the medicinal cauldron. However, at this moment, when Xiao Yan saw the young girl like this, he could not help but feel a little curious. I want to. Murong Chantian raised her pair of watery big eyes and looked at Xiao Yan with a crimson face. The words that were already at the tip of her tongue could not help but stop. If there's nothing else, I'll continue refining medicine. Don't disturb me after this, unless you don't want to recover from the injuries in your body. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's heart unconsciously surged with irritation. He frowned and casually said a few words to Murong Chantian. Soon after, he once again sat down and prepared to continue refining medicine. I want to take a bath. However, just as Xiao Yan turned around, the words that came out of the young girl's mouth caused Xiao Yan's turning movement to abruptly stop. His entire person was stunned for a moment. After a moment, Xiao Yan turned around with a displeased face and looked at Murong Chantian. Xiao Yan's face was slightly gloomy and his voice also became somewhat heavy. Little girl, listen carefully. I don't have the time to mess around with you here. Wait until I finish refining the medicinal pills. At that time, you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want. If you want to take a bath, I won't stop you. However, right now, don't be unreasonable with me and don't think about throwing that big missy temper of yours. Right now, in this place, I have the final say. But either you quietly wait for your injuries to recover, or you can leave on your own. The young lady had yet to spit out the words from her mouth when Xiao Yan forcefully interrupted her with a single sentence. After which, he was too lazy to bother about her. He turned around with an expressionless face, bent his legs and sat cross-legged in front of the medicinal cauldron, preparing for the next step of the medicinal pill refinement. After Xiao Yan sat down cross-legged, Murong Chantian, who had already recovered some of her strength on the stone bed, saw that her pair of watery pretty eyes contained some mist. Her exquisite and cute small face also revealed an aggrieved expression. Ever since she entered the Shilin mountain range, she had been chased all the way here. During this period, she did not even have the chance to catch her breath. Now that half a month had passed, she only wanted to take a bath. She did not expect that she would actually receive such a harsh treatment from Xiao Yan. A moment later, Murong Chantian saw Xiao Yan's indifferent expression as he focused on the medicinal cauldron in front of her. The young girl's throat involuntarily choked a little. Finally, Murong Chantian clenched her teeth angrily. Immediately, she forcefully propped up her weak, lovely body. Her face was pale as she walked out of the cave. Xiao Yan quietly sat in front of the medicinal cauldron from the beginning until the end. Both of his eyes were tightly shut, and there was no change in his expression. Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes only slowly opened after the young girl left the cave and walked into the pitch-black night sky of the outside world. At the same time, the empty space beside Xiao Yan distorted slightly. Gu Yu's body slowly appeared. He looked at Xiao Yan and gently lifted his eyebrows. Ugh, brat, you won't really allow her to leave like this, will you? With this girl's current condition, she will not be able to go far. Xiao Yan shook his head when he heard this. He turned his head to look at Gu Yu by the side and spoke with a teasing expression. Don't tell me that you are still unclear as to whether I have allowed her to leave or not? Gu Yu chuckled upon seeing this. He did not say anything else. His body twisted, and he sat on the stone bed, ignoring Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze and slowly shut his eyes. At this moment, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength probed. Murong Chantian's delicate body also appeared in Xiao Yan's mind. Xiao Yan's heart could be considered reassured that Murong Chantian had left the mountain cave. Due to his habit, any mountain cave that Xiao Yan found would definitely have mountains and water. Hence, there was a pool of water outside of this mountain cave at this moment. As for the current Murong Chantian, she was slowly walking towards the pond step by step. Xiao Yan divided his attention. He left a trace of spiritual strength on Murong Chantian's body. After which, Xiao Yan sat down and poured all of his attention into the medicinal cauldron in front of him. With a thought from Xiao Yan, the essence of various medicinal ingredients that had been refined was thrown into the medicinal cauldron. The pill refinement continued. Murong Chantian dragged her seriously injured body and continued to stay outside of the mountain cave until Xiao Yan finished refining the medicinal pill in the medicinal cauldron. Another month's time had passed since this medicinal pill was refined. Chapter 452. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, the medicinal pill within the medicinal cauldron in front of Xiao Yan had unknowingly begun to take shape. Under the continuous refinement of the heavenly flame, a medicinal pill that was not very smooth began to form within the medicinal cauldron. As the heavenly flame rose, the medicinal pill began to roll within the heavenly flame. Under the refinement of the heavenly flame, the uneven surface of the medicinal pill began to gradually change at an extremely slow pace. As long as the surface of the medicinal pill became completely round, this D-tier medicinal pill would be considered to have been successfully refined. Xiao Yan knew that the final pill refinement process was extremely important, and he could not afford to be even the slightest bit impatient. Slow work produced fine work, and this was the same for medicinal pills. If one wanted to obtain good quality pills, one must use the most rigorous attitude to refine them. No matter what one did, one must not be impatient. This was something that Yao Lao had repeatedly emphasized to Xiao Yan when Xiao Yan had just come into contact with the art of alchemy. From the looks of it now, it was just as Yao Lao had said. No matter what one did, one must not be impatient for quick success. It was also because of this that Xiao Yan did not dare to be careless when it came to alchemy. Of course, this was not the only thing. Cultivating his own way of life was just like the former. The process of nurturing the pill was long and boring. Fortunately, Xiao Yan was already used to this kind of dull and boring environment. At the same time that Xiao Yan threw his entire body into this final process of nurturing the pill, a strange pill fragrance was emitted from the medicinal cauldron. The rich pill fragrance transformed into clusters of misty smoke. With the medicinal cauldron as the center, it followed the few fire vents of the thousand-beast cauldron and first spread into the mountain cave. Soon after, it gradually spread towards the outside world. Outside the mountain cave, there was a small pool. The water in the pool was clear, and there were even a few low-tier medicinal ingredients growing within it. A thin layer of fog floated on the surface of the pool. Adding the lotus leaves and lotus flowers, it caused the pool to appear a little ethereal, fairy-like state. There were no small streams or rivers around the pool, and the water in the pool did not lean against a cliff. This pool was just like a natural hot spring. The temperature of the spring water in the pool was moderate, as though it had been created by nature. Adding the few chin lotuses within it, although these medicinal ingredients were not rare, a portion of the medicinal strength contained within them had also merged into the spring water due to them growing in the spring water all year round, causing the spring water to possess a strange healing effect. At this moment, a white and beautiful young lady with white skin was sitting cross-legged in the water. Her pretty eyes were tightly shut as she quietly sat in the water. The young lady's head was exposed as well as a small part of her body. As the young lady inhaled and exhaled, circular ripples around her body, which was as calm as a mirror. Ripples spread too. And, after the ripples spread, the young lady's hands formed a training seal. With a thought, the chi method in her body slowly circulated. The pure medicinal strength contained within the spring water was absorbed into the young lady's body a little at a time. With the guidance of the young lady's do chi, it slowly healed the injuries in the young lady's body. This lady was Murong Qianqian, who had left the cave a month ago with a heart full of grievances. Ever since Murong Qianqian sensed the special effect of this spring water, a joy immediately surged into her heart. She hoped that she could borrow the effect of this spring water to swiftly heal the injuries in her body. However, there was ultimately quite a big gap between imagination and reality. Even though Murong Qianqian had trained in this pool for a full month, there was not much change to the injuries within her body. This caused Murong Qianqian to feel helpless and depressed in her heart. At the same time, she was also disappointed that Xiao Yan's medicinal pill had yet to be refined. Ugh! Murong Qianqian helplessly sighed as she slowly withdrew from her training state. Immediately, her lovely body in the water twisted slightly. Immediately, her seductive body, which was as smooth as a water snake, leaped out of the pool. Sunlight scattered down and shone on the young lady's snow-white body, reflecting a sheep-fat jade-like tender whiteness. The warm but not intense temperature gave the young lady a warm feeling. At the same time, it also highlighted the young lady's proud snow-white skin. Feeling the favor of the sunlight, the corner of the young lady's mouth involuntarily revealed an enchanting smile. Immediately, Murong Qianqian waved her hand gently. The blue dress that was neatly folded and placed on the blue stone beside the pool immediately flew toward the young lady as if it had received an order. Soon after, Murong Chanqian's seductive body twisted in the air. Immediately, her snow-white lovely body easily slid into the long dress. Landing on the ground, the young lady faintly smiled and was about to take a walk in the forest. However, at this moment, a rich pill fragrance floated out from the mountain cave and pounced on the young lady's face. The tip of the young lady's nimble nose twitched slightly. She immediately smelled the pill fragrance in the air that refreshed the heart and refreshed the mind. This is the pill fragrance. Ha, don't tell me that the medicinal pill that fellow refined for this young lady has been completed. As she muttered in her mouth, a pleasantly surprised expression immediately surfaced on the young lady's face. However, she also understood that although the pill fragrance permeated the air, it did not mean that Xiao Yan's medicinal pill had been refined completely. However, even so, the young lady's heart was still pleasantly surprised. She believed that since they had already reached this step, it would not be long before the medicinal pill was truly refined completely. While carrying the joy in her heart, Murong Chanqian returned to the entrance of the mountain cave. The pill fragrance spread in all directions. At that time, it would definitely attract all sorts of magical beasts. If no one helped Xiao Yan block them, it was likely that this medicinal pill would not be able to be refined successfully. At that time, all her efforts would be for naught. At that time, Murong Chanqian's injuries would not be able to recover. As expected, as the pill fragrance spread in all directions, quite a number of magical beasts in the mountain forest 10,000 feet away from this cave also sensed this aura that caused their expressions to change a couple of hours later. As high-ranked magical beasts, their intelligence was not low to begin with. Now that they sensed this aura, their hearts immediately knew that someone was refining a medicinal pill. Perhaps, there was no one beside that person to protect him. With such a good opportunity, how could these wild fellows let it go? In an instant, countless magical beasts in the mountain forest moved because of that aura. The forest swayed as wave after wave of tyrannical auras carried lightning speed as they wildly rushed toward the mountain cave that Xiao Yan was currently in. Chapter 453. Within the mountain cave, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged in front of the medicinal cauldron. Both of his eyes were tightly shut as a vast amount of spiritual strength poured out from between his eyebrows and poured into the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He was doing his best to control the heavenly flame within the medicinal cauldron. Currently, the process of refining the waybill was nearing its end. He needed to put in all his effort to reduce the inflammation in order to ensure that there would not be the slightest accident in the following process. At this moment, Xiao Yan could be considered to have truly put in all his effort. After a month of refining medicinal pills, the enormous consumption of his spiritual strength caused Xiao Yan's complexion to appear somewhat pale. Threads of perspiration slowly flowed out from between his tightly knitted eyebrows. They followed Xiao Yan's cheeks and gathered at Xiao Yan's chin. The more critical the moment, the more Xiao Yan did not dare to relax. His nerves were extremely tense, causing the consumption of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength to be even more terrifying. Waves of perspiration continuously gushed out from the pores all over Xiao Yan's body. In just a short moment, Xiao Yan's black robe was already drenched in perspiration. Of course, the enormous consumption of spiritual strength was naturally proportional to the condensation of the medicinal pill. Although the consumption of spiritual strength caused Xiao Yan to feel a deep sense of fatigue, at the same time, the perfectly round medicinal pill within the medicinal cauldron was also rapidly condensing. He believed that it would not be long before the pill would be completely condensed and attract the pill lightning. At the same time, outside the mountain cave, Murong Chanqian's pretty face was currently incomparably solemn as she looked at the group of magical beasts that were swiftly flying over from afar. With Murong Chanqian's current condition, she did not think that she could stop these fellows. Damn it, why is this fellow's medicinal pill still not refined? If you don't come out, how am I going to deal with these fellows alone? At the same time that Murong Chanqian was cursing Xiao Yan, the group of magical beasts in the distance had already rapidly approached this place. In the blink of an eye, they had already appeared outside the mountain cave. From afar, the young girl was able to see the few magical beasts that were leading the group. Upon seeing them, the expression on Murong Chanqian's little face involuntarily changed slightly. Within this group of magical beasts, the strongest one was the huge ape that stood at the front of all the magical beasts. Its strength had already reached the level of half-martial emperor. In the circumference of 1,000 miles, it could be considered to be the strongest. Murong Chanqian. Even. Of Murong Qian. She had no doubt that if this huge ape were to attack, Never would I have expected to provoke such a fellow. Exactly what sort of medicinal pellet did Xiao Yan refine? Could it really be an emperor-grade medicinal pellet? Murong Qianqian was startled. To be able to attract 6 half-martial emperor-level magical beasts, the medicinal pellet that Xiao Yan had refined was something that one could imagine. If what he had refined was truly an emperor-grade medicinal pellet, then this Xiao Yan was truly frightening. Ha 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 ha, there's actually someone protecting you? Furthermore, it's a little girl. However, this is exactly what this king is interested in. Ha 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 ha. Just as Murong Qianqian's heart was feeling shocked by the medicinal pill that Xiao Yan had refined, a strong human figure slowly stepped out of the mountain forest a short distance away while laughing out loud. With each step he took, Murong Qianqian could clearly sense that the ground beneath her feet was slightly trembling. It was hard to imagine exactly what sort of frightening power was contained within this fellow's body. Ha-how? Little girl, you're injured. It seems that you haven't recovered yet. In that case, that guy's medicinal pellet was refined for you. Ha 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 ha. At the same time when the robust man walked out from the forest, the warm sunlight mercilessly scattered down from the horizon and shone on the robust man's body. The robust man's body was as robust as an ox. He had a shiny head and his upper body was bare. At a glance, one could see that frightening scars covered the robust man's entire body. It could even be said to be frightening. If this robust man were to be placed together with the current Murong Qianqian, then they would truly be a beauty and a beast. At this moment, this bald robust man was staring at Murong Qianqian with an evil smile on his face. His pair of beast-red eyes revealed a perverted expression. Humph. Facing the robust man's perverted smile, Murong Qianqian coldly snorted with a heart filled with disgust. The expression on her charming face was ice-cold. Haha, little girl, your little face is not bad. Why is your temperament so cold? However, it's exactly what this king wants. Ha 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 ha. With a laugh filled with perverted intentions, the bald robust man suddenly waved his large hand. The several figures behind him immediately rushed towards Murong Qianqian, intending to capture her. Humph. You dare to touch this young lady with just the likes of you. Seeing the several figures that had already arrived in front of her in an instant, Murong Qianqian coldly snorted. The expression on her charming face became even more grave and stern. Just as those people arrived in front of her and grabbed towards Murong Qianqian with a perverted smile on their faces, the young lady's graceful toes lightly tapped on the ground. At the same time her figure retreated, a strange blue fluorescent light quickly lingered within the young lady's quick-witted eyes. Instantly, a burst of strange pressure rapidly spread out from Murong Qianqian's body. In a blink of an eye, the expressions on the faces of the people who had obscene smiles on their faces as they grabbed Murong Qianqian abruptly changed. The figures that were originally rushing forward abruptly froze in midair the instant the pressure spread out. Their pupils also abruptly shrunk to the size of a needle tip. Even their unceasingly beating hearts had stopped at that instant. At the same time, a deep sense of fear quickly gushed out from the bottom of their hearts. It enveloped their minds and made them feel incomparable fear. Even though their strength far surpassed the young lady in front of them, they did not dare to make the slightest movement. What's going on? There's something strange about this little girl. Let this king personally take a look. Seeing this scene, the bald strong man couldn't help but be slightly astonished in his heart. However, immediately after, his strong body suddenly moved. In an instant, the strong man had already appeared in front of those people. Only at that moment did he understand why his subordinates were blocked by a heavily injured and weak girl. Feeling that formless pressure, the strong man's heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. That pressure came from the bloodline. In other words, the young lady in front of him was not a human. She was the same as them, a magical beast race. Humph. Little girl, I truly didn't expect that you would be able to perfectly conceal your identity under this king's probing. However, even if that's the case, this king will definitely take you in today. Even though the strong man felt very uncomfortable in his heart due to the pressure, his strength far surpassed Murong Qianqian. In addition, the latter's current condition was not good. Thus, the strong man did not fear her in his heart. After his cry sounded, the strong man suddenly twisted his body. His huge feet ferociously stepped on the empty air and once again grabbed at Murong Qianqian. Seeing that the strong man was actually not afraid of her pressure, Murong Qianqian's heart involuntarily shivered. However, facing the strong man who attacked once again, the young lady did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Her delicate body moved and she hurriedly dodged to one side. Rip! Although she had successfully dodged the strong man coldly smiled. With a flip of his hand, he forcefully tore off the sleeve on the young lady's left arm. Instantly, a lotus root-like snow-white wrist was exposed in the air. Ha 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 ha! I'll see if you can still dodge. If you dare to dodge again, this king will strip you naked right here. Ha 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 ha! The strong man's face was filled with an insolent lewd smile. His strong body ferociously moved and once again charged explosively towards Murong Chantian. Rumble! However, in the next instant, a wave of earth-shaking thunder suddenly resounded in this world. Pill lightning. Appear. Chapter 454. Rumble. Following a wave of deafening thunder sounds, the wind and clouds in the 100,000 feet sky above everyone's heads changed. The originally clear sky swiftly darkened. The wind and clouds in the sky stirred as large thunderclouds swiftly agglomerated and covered the sky. The sky changed color and the atmosphere swiftly became oppressive at this moment. Murong Chantian's heart instantly felt a chill. The pill lightning had gathered and Xiao Yan was alone. If no one protected him, this pill lightning could only be resisted by him alone. Given Xiao Yan's strength, how could he possibly be a match for the pill lightning? Bastard, why did this pill lightning not appear earlier or later? Why did it have to appear now? As she cursed in her heart, the expression on the young lady's pretty face swiftly turned grave. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted together as she looked at the pitch-black mountain cave. Her pretty eyes revealed a worried expression that could not be removed. Ha 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 ha! Pill lightning. The pill lightning has appeared. Humph humph, little girl. This king wants to see just how your little lover will withstand the pill lightning. Ha 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 ha! The strong man's mouth immediately emitted a ridicule when he saw the worried expression in Murong Chantian's pretty eyes. Immediately, his gaze once again landed on the alluring lovely body of the young lady that was wrapped in a long dress. His gaze paused on the snow-white wrist that was exposed in the air. Immediately, the strong man's face revealed a lewd smile as he stared at the delicate pretty face of the young lady. His eyes revealed a greedy ridicule as he spoke. Humph humph, why don't we do this? Little girl, as long as you agree to obediently return with this king will help your little lover withstand the pill lightning. What do you say? Although he spoke in this manner, the actions of the large man were merely for the sake of obtaining the D-tier medicinal pill. After all, if no one could withstand the pill lightning, this D-tier medicinal pill would ultimately have difficulty escaping the fate of being destroyed. A fury immediately rose in Murong Chantian's heart when she heard the words from the large man's mouth. However, due to the other party's strength, she could only furiously rebuke him. Her tone was icy cold as she cried out, "If you dare to touch a single hair of mine, I swear that I'll definitely make you die in this Shilin mountain range." Haha, there are a lot of people who want to take this king's life. However, little girl, you are not one of them. With merely your strength of a 4-star half-martial emperor, even if you've recovered from your injuries, what could you possibly do to this king? In response to the young girl's angry shout, the burly man only sneered. A bloodthirsty taste appeared in his beast-red eyes. Humph, I originally wanted to leave that kid's corpse intact, but since that's the case, I don't think it's necessary. Ha 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 ha. Rumble. As the loud laughter was emitted from the strong man's mouth, the thundercloud that had just agglomerated in the sky suddenly began to churn intensely. Soon after, an earth-shaking, frightening lightning suddenly fell from the thundercloud and violently smashed toward the spot where Xiao Yan was at this moment. Boom! As the thunder descended, the mountain cave that Xiao Yan was in was like a piece of tofu before the thunder. It was instantly shattered into a pile of fine powder by the thunder. The entire mountain was split open from the middle, revealing Xiao Yan who was inside the mountain. Oh, you're truly a delicate boy. No wonder you're able to have such a beauty accompanying you. However, now this beauty shall belong to this king. Ha 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 ha. With a loud laugh, the burly man's body suddenly flashed and he violently charged towards Xiao Yan. Seeing this scene, the expression on Murong Chantian's pale face changed once again. Ignoring the injuries in her body, the young girl's delicate body moved. In an instant, her delicate body had already appeared in front of the burly man. At the same time, her delicate jade-like hand was rapidly raised. Her finger drew across her fingertip and a few drops of dark red blood immediately flowed out. As the young girl's fingertip moved, the blood condensed into a peculiar symbol in the air before her. The instant the symbol was condensed, It rapidly turned into a ray of light and entered the young girl's body. Boom! In the next instant, the young girl's delicate body suddenly trembled. A powerful aura rapidly surged out from the young girl's body and turned into an energy storm. This caused the burly man who was rushing toward her to involuntarily stop. When the burly man focused his gaze, he saw that there was a surging do chi crazily surging out from Murong Qianqian's body. At the same time, the young girl's aura also rapidly increased. The originally weak do chi within her body also rapidly became abundant. Even her injuries were forcibly suppressed at this moment. After a couple breaths, the frightening aura that was surging violently within the young girl's body gradually stopped. At this moment, Murong Qianqian's strength had actually reached the level of a 5-star half-martial emperor. However, even though this was the case, there was still quite a large gap between her and this burly man. Oh, humph humph. And here I was wondering how strong you would become. It turns out that you're merely a 5-star half-martial emperor. However, this secret technique is quite good. If you are able to hand it over to this king guarantees that I will definitely dote on you greatly in the future. Ha 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 ha. Sensing the aura being emitted from the young girl's body, this burly man involuntarily felt astonished in his heart. However, in the blink of an eye, his face once again revealed a lewd smile filled with greed. He laughed wildly and fiercely licked his lips with his scarlet-red tongue. Ha ha, little girl. Since you are so impatient to be stripped naked by this king, then, this king is about to come. Ha 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 ha. Chi! After his laughter sounded, an intense sound of rushing wind suddenly sounded beside the young girl's ears. An enormous palm ruthlessly slapped toward the young girl's right shoulder. Seeing this, the expression on the young girl's face involuntarily changed slightly. Her pale face did not recover from the powerful aura within her body. Instead, at the same time that she sensed the danger before her, her pale face became even paler like paper. The young girl's lovely body turned around. Her state of mind was tense. At the same time that the do chi within her body surged, she flipped her lily-white hand and sent a palm ruthlessly smashing toward the empty space to the right of her lovely body. Rip! Murong Qianqian's palm shot forth and struck the empty space. At the same time, the sleeve on Murong Qianqian's right arm was forcibly torn apart by someone. Ah! The young girl was startled. As her lovely body moved back explosively, she extended both of her hands. Numerous do chi pillars immediately shot out and ruthlessly smashed into the surrounding empty space. However, in the end, the young girl was unable to land a single attack on that burly man with frightening agility. Instead, that burly man, after a couple of flashes, once again arrived in front of the young girl. With a wave of his hand, he forcibly tore off the belt on the young girl's waist. Without the belt, the long dress that the young girl was wearing immediately became loose. At the same time that the young girl's body moved back, a flowing wind blew past and the long dress immediately scattered with the wind, revealing a large portion of Murong Qianqian's long dress. However, before the expression on Murong Qianqian's face could change, the burly human figure once again appeared in front of the young girl. He grabbed at the remaining water blue-colored long dress on the young girl's body. The instant she regained her senses, the expression on Murong Qianqian's charming face abruptly changed into one of fear. Her charming face carried a horrified expression as her lovable body rapidly retreated backwards, hoping to avoid the bald beast in front of her. Unfortunately, although Murong Qianqian managed to dodge the burly man, a corner of the long dress that reached her feet was still grabbed by the burly man. Rip! Chapter 455. Rumble. While Murong Qianqian and the burly man were bitterly enduring, Xiao Yan finally exhaled a long breath. In the face of the lightning that fell from the sky, Xiao Yan did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. After connecting with the 3 frightening lightning bolts, Xiao Yan could clearly feel that the frightening lightning energy still remained in his body. However, under the refinement of Xiao Yan's heavenly flame, it was ultimately absorbed by him and became a part of Xiao Yan's strength. Xiao Yan slowly stood up. Not only did he feel a wave of dizziness, but in order to better raise the quality of this medicinal pill, Xiao Yan had gone all out this time. The consumption of his spiritual strength was naturally even more frightening. However, at the same time, the result that Xiao Yan obtained also caused him to be quite satisfied. This was the second Emperor Tier Complete pill that Xiao Yan had refined after the Emperor Tribulation pill that he had refined during the Alchemist Grand Meeting in the ancient Savage City. Xiao Yan believed that with these 2 experiences, it would be a solid start for him to refine Emperor Tier Complete pills in the future. Crackle! Thunderclouds churned high up in the sky. Xiao Yan had just stood up when another frightening furious lightning shot out from the thick thunder clouds. It was just like a horned dragon descending into the world as it ruthlessly bombarded Xiao Yan below. Xiao Yan violently shook his giddy head. Only then did he raise his head. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the frightening lightning that was rapidly descending. Immediately, he slowly withdrew his gaze. With a flick of his finger, a black flowing light swiftly shot out and met the rapidly descending lightning. Xiao Yan turned his gaze and looked towards the direction where Murong Qianqian was at. He coincidentally saw that the thin long skirt on Murong Qianqian's body had been torn to shreds by the burly man. Immediately, the long skirt on the young lady's body was torn up to her thighs. A pair of light and beautiful legs were exposed in the air, causing quite a number of people present to cry out loudly. Their eyes were filled with greed when they looked at the young lady. In the next moment, while the young lady's heart was filled with fear, the burly man once again approached her. With a lewd smile, he grabbed the remaining short skirt on the young lady's body. Ha 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 ha! Amidst the loud laughter, the burly man became increasingly closer to Murong Qianqian's delicate and lovely body. Due to the fear in the latter's heart, she actually forgot to dodge and froze in mid-air like a dead ash. Her heart was filled with fear as she looked at the burly man who was approaching her. Crystal-clear tears finally uncontrollably gushed out from the young lady's eyes at this moment. However, in the next moment, when the large hand of the burly man was less than an inch away from the long skirt that Murong Qianqian was wearing, a cold wind that caused one's heart to palpitate suddenly blew across the sky. Immediately in the next instant, bang! A terrifying explosion was mixed with an earth-shaking miserable cry. Faintly, there were even some slight sounds of bones breaking being buried within it. Immediately after, the group of magical beasts present saw a human figure abruptly fly out. At the same time that he flew out, fresh red blood sprayed out and dyed a large area of the ground red. This sudden scene caused everyone present to instantly become completely silent. Everyone widened their eyes and their gazes were filled with shock as they looked at the human figure that was sent flying out. When that human figure ferociously smashed into the ground, a huge deep pit was created in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone present focused their attention and looked over. When they clearly saw the face of that person, the expressions on everyone's faces suddenly froze. Immediately after, the sound of saliva being swallowed continuously sounded in the field. Shock was written all over everyone's faces. This was because the human figure that was sent flying was the burly man who had rushed towards the young lady and grabbed her a moment ago. After which, when everyone turned their gazes back and looked at the spot where the young lady was at, everyone's expressions involuntarily changed drastically. The person that appeared in front of them was not the elder that they had imagined in their hearts. Instead, it was a young man wearing a black robe and carrying a huge ruler on his back. Hua! Immediately, an uproar sounded in the field. However, Xiao Yan did not have the time to bother about it. His dark and stern eyes swept over those magical beasts that had transformed into human forms. The ice-cold killing intent in his eyes caused those fellows, who licked blood from their blades all day long, to involuntarily feel an icy cold feeling rising from the bottom of their hearts. This black-robed young man in front of them actually caused them to feel a dense aura of death. This kind of aura was agglomerated from killing aura. Only those who had experienced hundreds of battles could agglomerate it. It was difficult to imagine that this seemingly ordinary black-robed young man in front of them was actually so terrifying. If anyone offended him, it was likely that their ending would not be good. Woo-woo. Xiao Yan, you have finally come out. If you had still not come out, I'm afraid that I would have really been... Woo-woo-woo-woo-woo. Seeing Xiao Yan in front of her, Murong Qianqian appeared as though she had seen her savior. The fear in her heart finally and swiftly disappeared. Her lovely body trembled as she took a few steps forward and threw herself into Xiao Yan's embrace while crying. However, she did not realize that the long dress on her body had already been torn to shreds. In the process of throwing herself into Xiao Yan's embrace, the long dress on her body was finally unable to support itself and slid down from Murong Qianqian's lovely body. Therefore, at this moment, the one who had thrown herself into Xiao Yan's embrace was not only a delicate beauty, but also a natural beauty that would cause one's blood to spurt out. Feeling the soft body in his embrace, Xiao Yan's originally somewhat giddy head suddenly became clear. However, his entire face revealed an extremely awkward expression. Cough cough that your dress. Oh. Xiao Yan awkwardly coughed twice. Only then did the beauty in his embrace lower her light head somewhat doubtfully. Immediately following this, her entire pretty face, from her ears to her ears, instantly turned bright red. Her entire heart was filled with an indescribable awkwardness. She hurriedly and easily struggled free from Xiao Yan's embrace. However, at this moment, the time for the secret technique to be used had coincidentally arrived. This caused the young girl's body to rapidly emit an extremely weak feeling. Her delicate body could not help but fall backwards. Seeing this, the expression on Xiao Yan's face could not help but slightly change. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and hugged Murong Qianqian from behind. At the same time, Murong Qianqian's front view also fell into Xiao Yan's eyes. At the same time, the lovely person in his embrace fainted once again. Chapter 456. Xiao Yan lowered his head to look at the beauty who had once again fainted in his embrace. His sickly old face immediately turned completely red. This was especially so when the alluring body of the young lady was reflected in Xiao Yan's eyes. Xiao Yan's heart began to beat faster at this moment. However, Xiao Yan was someone who had experienced it before. He more or less possessed his own resistance to this kind of thing. In merely an instant, the restlessness that had just risen in Xiao Yan's heart was swiftly suppressed by Xiao Yan. Soon after, Xiao Yan suddenly waved his large sleeve. Dou Qi poured out and formed a black robe on Murong Qianqian's lovely body. It completely covered the snow-white body of the young lady that was exposed to the outside. After which, she was gently placed on the ground by Xiao Yan's side. Soon after, the moment Xiao Yan stood up and turned around, the strong man who had been sent flying by Xiao Yan's attack from the large pit in the distance also staggered as he climbed out of the large pit. The instant the strong man raised his head, Xiao Yan also coincidentally raised his gaze. After which, the 2 human figures looked at each other from a distance of 1,000 feet. Their respective bodies appeared to have solidified in an instant and did not move at all. Xiao Yan's expression did not change in the slightest when faced with a strong man in front of him. However, the gentleness that was originally contained within his pair of dark black eyes had already disappeared. Replacing it was an indifferent gaze that caused one to feel a chill from the bottom of one's heart. As for the strong man, his heart was also filled with anger toward this young brat who had single-handedly ruined his plans. He even wished that he could pull out the tendons and pull out the bones of this brat. However, at the same time, when the strong man saw Xiao Yan for the first time, he had already discovered in his heart that the strength of this young brat in front of him had actually reached the level of a 5-star half-emperor. Compared to him, there was only a gap of 1 star. Hence, when the strong man looked at Xiao Yan, his heart similarly did not dare to be careless. Humph, kid. I didn't expect you to be able to refine an emperor-grade pill at such a young age. I have to say, you are truly a rare genius. As he said this, the burly man slowly placed one hand behind his back. With a thought, the Dou Qi in his body surged and quickly gathered in his palm. You want to snatch the pills I refined? Xiao had naturally sensed the actions of the burly man in front of him. However, he could not be bothered. His words cut straight to the chase. Heh, this medicinal pill of yours is an ownerless item. As the saying goes, only those who are fated will obtain it. This king is merely helping you obtain it and not burying it. But why would you say such words? The burly man gave a sinister smile, and the expression on his face gradually turned vicious. Haha, this pill was personally refined by me. How could it be ownerless? Unless... Haha, you guessed right. As long as you die, this pill will become an ownerless item. So kid, go to hell. If you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for being too stupid. You actually did not take any precautions against this king. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Yan's words had yet to fade when the burly man suddenly laughed out loud. With a cry, the burly man had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan. He waved his large hand and his 5 fingers were tightly clenched into a fist. A frightening strength was contained within his palm as he viciously smashed his fist towards Xiao Yan's head. If this punch were to land, even with Xiao Yan's strength, only death would await him. Ha! However, even at this moment, Xiao Yan still emitted a soft laugh. He slowly lifted his gaze. His eyes were filled with indifference as he stared at the burly man in front of him. He slowly said, "It is not that I am not on guard against you. It is just that it is unnecessary to be on guard against someone like you. You are seeking death." Hearing that Xiao Yan actually dared to be so arrogant in the face of death, the burly man's heart was immediately enraged. He let out a stern cry and the Dou Qi in his body swiftly churned. The strength contained within his large fist also became even more frightening. In the next instant, the burly man's large fist, which was wrapped in dough qi and was larger than Xiaoyan's head, was already less than an inch away from Xiaoyan's face. In the next moment, Xiaoyan would become one of the dead souls under this burly man's hands. Qi! However, in the blink of an eye, the burly man's expression abruptly changed when his fist was thrown out and landed on Xiaoyan's face. This was because when his fist landed, Xiaoyan, who was smashed by his large fist, actually disappeared into thin air. Under the wind of his fist, nothing was left. An afterimage. Seeing this scene, the expression on the burly man's face became one of shock. It was difficult to imagine that at such a close distance, this black-robed young man was actually able to perfectly dodge his attack. How is this possible? Other than being shocked, the burly man's heart was filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that a 5-star half-martial emperor would actually be able to perfectly dodge the attack of a 6-star half-martial emperor like him. Moreover, he had done it in such a thrilling manner. From the way it appeared earlier, Xiaoyan had done it on purpose. This also meant that Xiaoyan possessed a frightening speed that allowed him to easily dodge all of his attacks. Thinking of this, the burly man's heart was suddenly startled. He could not help but doubt the true strength of this black-robed young man. After all, being able to easily dodge the attack of a 6-star half-martial emperor was something that an ordinary agility do skill would not be able to do. Unless, his opponent's strength far surpassed his own. If that was truly the case, it was likely that he had kicked an iron plate today. Since you've already made your move, it's my turn now. Just as the burly man's heart was filled with fear, an extremely cold and indifferent voice was suddenly transmitted into his ears. Hearing those words, the expression on the burly man's face involuntarily changed slightly. His body shook and he was about to explosively retreat in a flash. However, right at this moment, Xiaoyan's figure suddenly appeared in front of the burly man. His pale face carried a bone-chilling smile as he faced the burly man's 4 eyes. Ah! Such an abrupt instant also caused the burly man's heart to suddenly freeze. His pair of beast red eyes abruptly shrunk. Just as the burly man recovered, Xiaoyan coldly laughed. Immediately after, he flipped his palm and ferociously sent a palm strike ruthlessly smashing into the burly man's chest. Soul-suppressing seal. Bang! Following the explosion of the palm, a muffled bang sound was emitted. The burly man's body flew back uncontrollably. After flipping a couple of times in the air, he violently smashed into the ground and slid nearly 1,000 feet across the ground. Only then did he collapse onto the ground like a pile of mud. His aura had already completely disappeared and he was undoubtedly a dead man. Chapter 457. A single palm strike. A single palm strike had killed a 6-star half-martial emperor. At this moment, the numerous demonic beasts that had been attracted by the emperor-grade medicinal pellet had turned completely silent. The scene before their eyes was truly too shocking. It was hard to imagine that a 6-star half-martial emperor, the strongest person present, would actually be killed by a single palm strike from a 5-star half-martial emperor. This sort of thing could be said to be inconceivable. Of course, in the hearts of these fellows at this moment, Xiaoyan's palm had brought them more fear. After all, even that 6-star half-martial emperor had died at Xiaoyan's hands. How could they, who possessed even lower strength, possibly be a match for this black-robed youth before them? Immediately, many of the demonic beasts that had transformed into human form began to retreat. Standing in the air, Xiaoyan's gaze was indifferent as he looked at the group of demonic beasts that were still revealing greedy gazes. His gaze involuntarily revealed some astonishment. These guys were truly worthy of licking blood from blades. Even at this moment, they were still unwilling to give up on fighting over the emperor-grade medicinal pill. Xiaoyan took a deep breath with some difficulty. First, he had refined the medicinal pill. Then, he had used the soul-suppressing seal. At this moment, there was not much soul energy left in the soul bead in his mind. As for Xiaoyan, he was already unable to forcefully suppress the feeling of weakness coming from within his body. If he wanted to recover as soon as possible, he would have to send this group of demonic beasts away. Humph! A cold snort was emitted. Everyone present was as quiet as cicadas in winter. After having witnessed the frightening aura of Xiaoyan earlier, no one present dared to treat this black-robed young man in front of them as an ordinary 5-star half-D. When Xiaoyan's cold snort was heard, everyone's gaze uniformly landed on Xiaoyan. At this moment, Everyone's nerves suddenly tightened. Waves of cold sweat had already drenched their backs. Even though they were half-martial emperors, they were still unable to summon the slightest bit of the imposing manner that a half-martial emperor should have before this black-robed youth. "Leave this place within 10 breaths or die." Xiao Yan's tone was unyielding. After this icy-cold voice was emitted, a frightening Do-Chi energy suddenly swept out from within Xiao Yan's body. The powerful pressure caused everyone present to reveal grave expressions. Even those 5-star half-martial emperors like Xiao Yan had faces filled with shock at this moment. The shock in their hearts could not be described with words. Judging from his appearance, how could this black-gowned man possibly be a 5-star half-martial emperor? Judging from his oppressive might, his actual strength was likely at least that of an 8-star half-martial emperor. After that oppressive might was emitted, the remaining few 5-star half-martial emperors looked to each other in secret. They then took another glance at Xiao Yan. A couple of them seemed to be confirming something. In the next moment, they suddenly turned around and, with their fastest speed, shot explosively toward the direction they had come from without even turning their heads back. Seeing that Xiao Yan actually did not continue to attack, the remaining people present also turned around and hurriedly raised the Do-Chi within their bodies. One by one, they began to move, and rapidly ran in the direction they had come from. They wished that they could instantly distance themselves from Xiao Yan's line of sight. After all of the people present had left, Xiao Yan's body grew soft and he nearly fell from the sky. Only then did he descend shakily and arrive before Murong Qianqian. He looked at the beautiful person who had already fainted. Because this girl had used a secret technique earlier, her bitter training in the past month had once again turned into nothingness. At this very moment, the injuries on Murong Qianqian's body were even more serious compared to a month ago. If he could not quickly heal her injuries, then this time around, Murong Qianqian's life would truly be in danger. Damn it, what a stupid girl. Could it be that she truly doesn't want to live anymore? Xiao Yan tightly frowned and cursed in a low voice. After pondering for a moment in his heart, he finally shook his head helplessly. He forced himself to raise his spirit and dragged his exhausted body to the front of the medicinal cauldron. Looking at the thunderclouds in the sky that were about to disperse, Xiao Yan could not help but sigh in relief in his heart. Withdrawing his gaze, Xiao Yan looked at the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Looking through the medicinal cauldron, Xiao Yan saw the glazed medicinal pill that was emitting a dazzling golden light within the medicinal cauldron. Xiao Yan swiftly lifted both of his hands. With a thought, the Do-Chi within his body swiftly surged out. Following the movement of Xiao Yan's fingers, numerous mysterious seals were swiftly formed. It was the Dan transformation divine skill. This time around, facing the medicinal pill within the medicinal cauldron, Xiao Yan did not have the slightest hesitation. He forcefully endured the waves of weakness that were emitted from his body. Xiao Yan's teeth fiercely bit the tip of his tongue. At the same time that fresh blood sputtered out, Xiao Yan's body violently trembled. Only then did the world in front of him become much more stable. At the same time, the beautiful heavenly flame agglomerated into a palm-sized fire ring between Xiao Yan's hands. Following a thought from Xiao Yan, it turned into a ray of light that shot into the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Feeling the fire ring approaching, the medicinal pill suddenly trembled intensely at this critical moment. Immediately, a golden ray of light wildly surged out from the medicinal pill and agglomerated into a layer of golden energy shield around the medicinal pill. Chi. With the protection of the shield, Xiao Yan's Dan transformation ring was unable to break through to the front of the medicinal pill. Xiao Yan's expression became increasingly pale in this short moment. It was unexpected that the medicinal pill was still unwilling to settle down even at this moment. If it were not for the fact that Xiao Yan's spiritual strength was too weak at this moment, this thing would definitely not be able to endure for so long. Damn it! When he thought of how Murong Qianqian was currently seriously injured and how such a thing had happened, Xiao Yan's heart immediately became anxious. If it was something else, it would have been fine. However, this girl was injured because she was stalling for time for Xiao Yan. Even though that little bit of time was not important, this girl still ended up making a move. Whether it was due to emotion or reason, Xiao Yan could not ignore it. Sigh. Xiao Yan helplessly sighed in his heart. With a thought, a dazzling golden light suddenly shot out from between his eyebrows. A mysterious symbol appeared between Xiao Yan's eyebrows. It was the Xiao clan tattoo. When the clan tattoo appeared, Xiao Yan's aura also rapidly rose. His condition also temporarily recovered. Taking advantage of this short moment, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly became awe-inspiring. With a low cry in his heart, Xiao Yan swiftly lifted his hands. Seals were quickly formed between his hands. At the same time, the aura of the Dan transformation ring also rapidly rose. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's hands waved forcefully. The palm-sized Dan transformation ring also abruptly expanded by more than 10 times. With a thought from Xiao Yan, the energy shield on the medicinal pill was forcefully burst open like a balloon. With a bang, it was forcefully burst open. Dan transformation ring collect. Chapter 458. In the blink of an eye, night once again descended. A young man in black robes was sitting cross-legged on the ground with his eyes tightly shut in a certain open space within a dark black mountain forest. His face was slightly pale. In front of this man was a delicate lady who was similarly covered in a black robe. Her pretty face was completely pale. From the looks of the latter's current expression, it was clear that she had suffered quite a serious injury. These two people were Xiao Yan and Murong Qianqian. At this moment, Xiao Yan's eyes were tightly shut. His aura was withdrawn. Following his inhalation and exhalation, waves of mottled natural energy swiftly gathered from the surrounding space. They followed Xiao Yan's pores and entered Xiao Yan's body. After which, they were refined by the flame art chi method and finally merged into the vortex within Xiao Yan's body. As for the current Murong Qianqian, after Xiao Yan had fed her the D-tier medicinal pill, he could clearly sense an extremely powerful medicinal strength within her body. However, due to Murong Qianqian's injuries being too serious, the medicinal strength was unable to completely merge with the injuries within her body. Hence, even at this moment, the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill could only linger within her body, and was ultimately unable to heal her injuries. A moment later, Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes. At a glance, he saw Murong Qianqian in front of him, whose face was still pale. Immediately, Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned. If the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill was unable to completely merge with Murong Qianqian's body, it would ultimately be useless even if she swallowed the medicinal pill. At this moment, if he wanted to use the most gentle method to merge this medicinal strength into her body, he could only rely on Do Qi to activate it. Given Murong Qianqian's current condition, it was clearly impossible. Hence, this heavy burden could only be placed on Xiao Yan's shoulders. The corner of Xiao Yan's eyes involuntarily twitched when he thought of this. At this moment, even he himself was in a weakened state. At this moment, he actually had to help this girl activate the medicinal strength within her body. This was undoubtedly a huge problem for the current Xiao Yan. Tisk! Xiao Yan snorted softly and helplessly curled his lips. Who asked him to be more or less responsible for the serious injuries of this great lady in front of him? Now, in order to not feel guilty in his heart, he could only save this annoying fellow in front of him first. It had to be said that if it was possible, Xiao Yan really didn't want to have any relationship with this Murong Qianqian. However, fate made fools of people. He was afraid that he would have to bring this trouble along with him for the rest of the journey. Xiao Yan involuntarily let out a bitter sigh when he thought of this. After which, he gently lifted this delicate and boneless lovely body. With a flip of his hand, he poured the Do Qi in his body into the young lady's body, in order to help her activate the medicinal strength that was unable to spread within her body. However, Gu Yu's voice suddenly sounded in Xiao Yan's heart at this moment. Humph, kid, are you sure you're saving people and not killing them? Ha! Xiao Yan involuntarily felt a little startled in his heart when he heard this sudden voice. After which, he swiftly reacted and let out a long sigh of relief. After which, his tone was filled with doubt as he spoke to Gu Yu within his body. What is it? Am I not saving her? If I do not act, it is likely that this girl will not be able to survive this calamity today. From the looks of the young lady's injuries, if she was unable to recover from her injuries within a day, it was likely that her life would really be in danger. At that time, Xiao Yan would likely have to bear the guilt for the rest of his life. Humph, what you say might be right, but if you really act, it is likely that this girl will not even be able to live past a day. Ugh! Xiao Yan's pale face suddenly changed after Gu Yu's words sounded. He did not understand the meaning behind Gu Yu's words, but Xiao Yan had always trusted Gu Yu. Naturally, he would not doubt his words. Hence, Xiao Yan's extended hand was swiftly withdrawn after Gu Yu's words sounded. Humph, After this little girl has gone through so much, the injuries within her body have already become so severe that they can't get any more serious. Now, no matter if it's her internal organs or meridians, they are all extremely weak. Once your strong do qi enters her body from the outside, during this process, it's enough to cause her injuries to worsen. At that time, even if the gods come, they won't be able to save her. Cold sweat immediately surfaced on Xiao Yan's pale face when he heard Gu Yu's words. He involuntarily rejoiced in his heart. It was fortunate that he had an old antique like Gu Yu by his side. Otherwise, Murong Qianqian might really have died to his hands. Who? Xiao Yan bitterly sighed in relief. Soon after, he hurriedly opened his mouth and asked Gu Yu, "Old Gu, since this is the case, is there any other way to help this girl spread the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill within her body?" Gu Yu involuntarily curled his lips when he heard this question. "I say, you are at the very least a Tier 2 alchemist, right? Why do you act like a beginner when faced with such a situation?" Cough cough. Xiao Yan involuntarily coughed in embarrassment when he heard Gu Yu's blunt words. After which, he gently frowned and doubtfully asked Gu Yu in his heart, "Are you saying that I should use a heavenly flame?" Gu Yu was speechless when he heard Xiao Yan's words. It was a long while later before he helplessly curled his lips and said, "Idiot! Don't tell me that a heavenly flame cannot be activated by do qi? The old me is talking about acupuncture points. Massage a few of the acupuncture points on this girl's body and activate the do qi within her body from the outside. As long as the do qi within her body is activated, the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill will naturally spread. At that time, the injuries within this girl's body will be healed." Ugh! The expression on Xiao Yan's face involuntarily became a little startled when he heard this. Massaging acupuncture points? Why did he feel a sense of déjà vu when he heard these words? At this moment, Xiao Yan lifted his eyes to the sky. The scene from the magical Beast Mountain range back then involuntarily surfaced in his mind. "Hee hee, brat, this is a great job. Hee hee hee." At this moment, Gu Yu's mocking laughter was vaguely emitted from the bottom of Xiao Yan's heart. Just by hearing this mocking laughter, one could sense the ill intent within it. Xiao Yan's eyes slanted. His heart involuntarily felt a little weak. It was a long while later before he softly asked in his heart, "Old Gu, according to what you said, the few acupuncture points that I need to massage are..." "Heh, don't tell me you don't know. It's the few meridians that are required for the cultivation method, as well as the few meridians that connect to the internal organs. This little girl's injuries are not light. Remember, every meridian on the internal organs must be carefully massaged." Hee 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 hee. Xiao Yan's pale face suddenly flushed red after Gu Yu's mocking laughter was emitted. Chapter 459. Xiao Yan's face was boiling hot as he looked at the unconscious Murong Qianqian in front of him. Xiao Yan naturally understood the meaning behind Gu Yu's words. The main acupuncture points on the qi paths that Gu Yu had mentioned were all the more sensitive spots for a woman. Once Murong Qianqian woke up during the massage, it was likely that the misunderstanding would become a little big. Ugh! Xiao Yan sighed deeply. His brows were tightly knit together as he thought of a solution in his heart. If it was possible, he did not wish to have anything to do with this young lady in front of him. Unfortunately, even though Xiao Yan had racked his brains, he was still unable to think of a better solution. From the looks of the current situation, what Gu Yu had said was imperative. Xiao Yan shut his eyes tightly and helplessly shook his head. However, he quickly nodded heavily. After which, he inhaled a deep breath of air. Only then did Xiao Yan appear to have made some kind of decision. His hand slowly extended from under his sleeve. He extended 2 fingers. With a twist of his hand, the 2 fingers turned into a sword and suddenly pressed down on a certain spot on the young lady's lower abdomen. "Excuse me. I hope that you can understand. I am doing all of this for your own good." Xiao Yan's finger instantly pressed on the young lady's flat lower abdomen, which was wrapped in a black robe, after his voice sounded. Despite being wrapped by the black robe, the young lady's exquisite and well-proportioned lovely body was still perfectly displayed in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. Moreover, with the contrast of the black robe and the drowsy manner of the young lady at this moment, the allure that she gave others was not suppressed. Instead, it became even more enchanting at this moment. Although Xiao Yan's finger had pressed on the black robe, how could the thin gauze cover the young lady's soft and lovely body? Immediately, an unusual smooth feeling swiftly surged into Xiao Yan's mind. A faint warmth was transmitted to Xiao Yan's thumb through the black gauze, causing that smooth feeling to appear incomparably clear at this moment. When that unusual feeling surged into Xiao Yan's mind, Xiao Yan's face instantly became even redder. Even the 2 fingers, which were pressed on the young lady's lower abdomen, involuntarily trembled. Fortunately, Xiao Yan's mental strength was far from what an ordinary person could compare with. Within a short couple of breaths, Xiao Yan swiftly calmed down. His flushed face also gradually recovered. "Who?" After exhaling a deep breath, Xiao Yan once again held his breath and concentrated. Immediately, he exerted strength in his arm and gently twisted his wrist. His thumb followed suit and began to gently massage the young lady's flat lower abdomen. Following Xiao Yan's massage, the dou qi within the vortex in the young lady's body actually began to circulate slightly. At the same time, the medicinal effect of the medicinal pill, which had yet to spread within Murong Qianqian's body, also began to move strangely at this moment. "Oh, it works." Sensing this, Xiao Yan immediately rejoiced in his heart. Unknowingly, he also increased the strength of his fingers' massage. At the same time, the speed at which the medicinal effect spread within the young lady's body also increased. As time elapsed, Xiao Yan's finger also gradually changed its position from the young lady's lower abdomen. Wherever Xiao Yan's thumb reached, the medicinal effect within the young lady's body would also completely cover it. Murong Qianqian's pale face finally recovered some color. As time gradually elapsed, Xiao Yan's finger also gradually moved from Murong Qianqian's lower abdomen to the position above the young lady's waist, which was not large enough to be grasped with one hand. At this moment, Xiao Yan's pale face involuntarily became even paler. He was originally not in his best condition. Forcefully maintaining a high level of concentration was undoubtedly a great exhaustion to Xiao Yan's mental strength. At this moment, Xiao Yan's black long robe from head to toe had already been completely drenched by perspiration. A scarlet color had also gradually spread within his pair of dark black eyes. Xiao Yan clenched his teeth tightly. His breathing from his nose became increasingly rough. Threads of perspiration continued to slide down from Xiao Yan's forehead, gathering at Xiao Yan's chin and turning into a crystal-clear water droplet. After which, with a drip sound, it dripped onto the green rock in front of Xiao Yan. At the same time, under the effects of the medicinal pill, the originally unconscious Murong Qianqian could already vaguely feel a strange feeling at this very moment. As the medicinal effect spread, the injuries within Murong Qianqian's body gradually improved. The young lady's consciousness also unknowingly became increasingly clear. In the midst of her vagueness, that strange feeling had already become increasingly clear within the young lady's consciousness. Until the end, ugh! Following a low groan, Xiao Yan's originally focused eyes suddenly widened. His grave face rapidly became deathly pale. As his throat rolled, traces of a fishy sweet taste also surged into Xiao Yan's throat. Huff, huff! After violently gasping for breath for a moment, Xiao Yan's pale face finally turned his gaze towards the still unconscious Murong Qianqian. After seeing that the latter did not show any signs of waking up, Xiao Yan finally heaved a long sigh of relief. His gaze was still filled with suspicion as he stared at the latter's tightly shut beautiful eyes for a moment. Soon after, Xiao Yan's face was grave as he once again focused his attention. His finger trembled slightly as it once again landed. This time, Xiao Yan's finger landed near the young lady's chest. That area could be considered as a rather sensitive area for a woman. The instant Xiao Yan's finger landed, Murong Qianqian's seemingly calm pale face involuntarily knitted her brows together. A strange expression flashed by and disappeared. Therefore, Xiao Yan did not discover it. However, following Xiao Yan's massage, the young lady's breathing had unknowingly become somewhat hurried. Her pair of slender jade-like hands that were covered by the black robe also tightly clenched. After a long while, Xiao Yan's massage finally reached the last acupuncture point. At the same time, this acupuncture point had also reached Murong Qianqian's heart. At this moment, Murong Qianqian, who had forcefully closed her eyes, was almost unable to endure any longer. Her entire delicate body could not help but tremble slightly. As for Xiao Yan, due to the excessive exhaustion of his mental energy, his spiritual strength was unable to endure. Everything in front of his eyes had subsequently become blurry. Until a certain moment, Xiao Yan's body relaxed and softly fell onto the delicate body in front of him. Ah! Exclaiming in her heart, the young lady's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. The instant she opened her eyes, she saw an exhausted face of Xiao Yan, who had already fainted. Seeing this scene, the young lady's expression involuntarily became a little sluggish. Only then did she react. Every part of her body that had been massaged by Xiao Yan's finger earlier had already been filled with a gentle medicinal power. A warm feeling filled the young lady's entire body. Immediately, the young lady was finally able to understand Xiao Yan's actions earlier. However, other than this, a different kind of complicated feeling involuntarily rose in the young lady's heart. After all, even though Xiao Yan had saved her, but regardless, Xiao Yan's actions earlier could be considered as touching her entire body from head to toe. When she thought of this, sparkling tears involuntarily surged into the young lady's pair of beautiful eyes. Even though she knew that Xiao Yan did not intend to do this, in her heart, she was still somewhat unable to accept such a thing happening. However, after the young lady saw Xiao Yan's exhausted face, the thoughts in her heart suddenly gradually calmed down. Although her words were as such, Xiao Yan had after all saved her a couple of times. All of this could only be treated as a dream. The young lady lifted her beautiful eyes and looked up at the endless pitch-black night sky. The bright white moonlight scattered over the empty space in the forest, covering the young lady and the unconscious Xiao Yan's body. It was as if a layer of gauze had covered them. At the same time, on a certain tall mountain peak in the depths of the Shilin mountain range, 3 figures were standing. These 3 people were Tian Ying, Yan Shi and Xiong Gang. At this moment, there were another 3 to 4 figures behind the 3 of them. They were respectfully standing with fearful expressions. Looking at these few people, it was clear that they were the few 5-star half-emperors who had fled from Xiao Yan during the day. Chapter 460. The next day. The scorching sun hung high in the sky. After a night of recovery, Murong Qianqian's overall condition had already recovered significantly. The miraculous nature of an Emperor-tier medicinal pill was indeed incomparable. With the aid of an Emperor-tier medicinal pill, Murong Qianqian's body's injuries had recovered much faster compared to the 1 month of recovery in the hot spring. At this moment, Murong Qianqian's overall strength had recovered by at least 30%. From this, it was obvious just how frightening the energy of an Emperor-tier medicinal pill was. Of course, although the Emperor-tier medicinal pill had already completely merged with Murong Qianqian's body, the medicinal strength contained within the medicinal pill had yet to be completely absorbed by Murong Qianqian. Therefore, as long as Murong Qianqian put in a little effort over the next few days to completely activate the medicinal strength within her body, it was likely that Murong Qianqian's injuries would once again recover to their peak in less than a week's time. At that time, Xiao Yan would be able to leave this girl who caused him to feel annoyed. Although the injuries within her body had been healed, Murong Qianqian did not neglect this opportunity. Taking advantage of her current good condition, she hurriedly sat up. Her delicate jade-like hands formed a cultivation seal. As the qi method within her body circulated, waves after waves of natural energy swiftly gathered towards the young lady. On the other side, Xiao Yan was still sleeping soundly at this moment. Even though it was already close to noon, from the looks of Xiao Yan's sleeping appearance, it was likely that he would not wake up for a short period of time. There was nothing that could be done. Continuously exhausting a large amount of spiritual strength was something that even Xiao Yan would not be able to endure. Only in this current state would he be able to recover the spiritual strength that Xiao Yan had exhausted in the shortest time possible. At the same time, at a place near the depths of the Shilin mountain range, 3 human figures were stepping on empty air and flying. Their direction was where Xiao Yan was currently located. In the blink of an eye, a new day had arrived. Xiao Yan's eyelids trembled slightly and his eyebrows knitted together. Finally, he slowly woke up from his deep slumber. The moment he opened his eyes, Xiao Yan saw a beautiful young lady who had changed into a long dress and was sitting cross-legged on a piece of green rock under the sunlight. Her white jade-like hands formed a cultivation seal, and a rosy color once again surged onto her originally pale face. Her weak aura also became stable. Ah! Xiao Yan shook his head in a somewhat perplexed manner. Only then did he stand up from the ground. A cool breeze blew past and Xiao Yan immediately felt his entire body shake. The sleepiness in his heart was also completely wiped away in an instant. Raising his head slightly, Xiao Yan closed his eyes and took a deep breath of the refreshing air between heaven and earth. He slowly extended his hands from under his sleeves and then suddenly clenched them tightly. Ha! Xiao Yan let out a low cry in his heart. After which, his entire body suddenly shook. Immediately, A wave of bone-cracking sounds were emitted from all over Xiao Yan's body. Feeling the abundant dou qi in his body, Xiao Yan involuntarily let out a long sigh of relief. His gaze turned and once again landed on Murong Qianqian's body. Although the young lady had already entered into a training state at this moment, she had already clearly sensed the gaze that Xiao Yan shot toward her following the recovery of the injuries in her body. Her long beautiful eyes trembled slightly. Immediately, a pair of lively eyes met Xiao Yan's eyes like the stars in the sky. The eyes of the two of them met, but for some unknown reason, Xiao Yan seemed to have recalled something. Their eyes merely met for an instant before Xiao Yan was the first to look away. A complicated expression involuntarily flashed across Murong Qianqian's pretty face. Her bright eyes turned and she also looked away. Hee, little fellow, why are you hiding? You threw yourself onto me when you were unconscious. I did not see you hide back then. Now that things have already happened, what is there to hide? You should just face your feelings. In any case, there is only the two of you here. No one will disturb you. Gu Yu's teasing voice was suddenly transmitted from the bottom of Xiao Yan's heart after Xiao Yan turned his eyes away. Xiao Yan's face swiftly turned bright red when he heard those words. Cough, cough. Xiao Yan coughed awkwardly in his heart. Only then did he snappily reply to Gu Yu. My consciousness was blurry back then. How can it be compared to now? She clearly woke up before me. If I was still lying on her back then, wouldn't it be? Relax. If she really wanted to kill you because you touched her body, she would have done so long ago. Didn't you realize that this little girl had already woken up while you were massaging her? Ugh. The expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly hardened when he heard Gu Yu's words. Back then, he had focused all his attention on helping Murong Qianqian resolve the medicinal strength in her body. How could he have the time to bother about whether she was awake or not? However, if it was really as Gu Yu had said, wouldn't the matter of him massaging Murong Qianqian have fallen into her eyes? Xiao Yan's face instantly turned bright red when he thought of this. He lifted his eyes and looked at Murong Qianqian, only to discover that the latter was also looking at him. Immediately, Xiao Yan's eyes involuntarily became a little startled. He hurriedly opened his mouth to speak. That matter. There is no need for you to say anything more. Just treat it as a dream and nothing has happened. However, before Xiao Yan could say anything, Murong Qianqian's pretty face turned slightly red as she glanced at Xiao Yan. Her tone was calm as she spoke. As the young lady's words fell, the atmosphere in the square immediately became somewhat oppressive. The gazes of the two of them looked around. Their lips moved slightly, but they did not know what to say to alleviate this oppressive atmosphere. However, a short moment later, the expression on the face of Xiao Yan, who was originally frowning helplessly, suddenly changed. His body, which was standing on the ground, suddenly turned around. He lifted his head and looked at the western sky behind him. Xiao Yan could clearly sense that at this moment, there were three extremely powerful auras flying towards them at an extremely fast speed. Xiao Yan instantly recognized the owners of these three auras. These three people were surprisingly the three great kings from the depths of the Shilin mountain range. Tianying, Flame Lion and Xiong Gang. Xiao Yan did not expect that these three fellows would actually chase him all the way to this place. However, it was fortunate that Xiao Yan's Sky Absolute Step had already entered the wind movement stage. He naturally had some confidence when facing these three people. However, Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned after thinking about it. He was indeed not afraid of these three people. However, the key was that Xiao Yan still had Murong Qianqian beside him. This was really troublesome. Chapter 461. Once Murong Qianqian's words were spoken, the expressions of the Heavenly Eagle trio in front of her instantly changed. Their eyes revealed a shocked expression. If something happened to this great ant in front of them in their territory, they would not be able to keep their heads. Seeing this, Murong Qianqian coldly snorted. The expression on her pretty face immediately became displeased. She glanced at the three people in front of her and spoke with a tone filled with complaints. A month ago, I was chased by a group of people and nearly lost my life in their hands. It was Xiao Yan who saved me. At that time there was a 9-star half-emperor in that group. In order to save me, Xiao Yan used all his strength to kill them all. When she finished speaking, Murong Qianqian took advantage of the shock on the faces of the three people in front of her to playfully glance at Xiao Yan. With regards to this, Xiao Yan could only helplessly shrug his shoulders. At the same time, the expressions on the faces of the heavenly eagle trio abruptly changed. The three of them looked at each other. In their hearts, they believed 70 to 80% of Morong Chanqian's words. After all, if it was someone else, they might not believe it. However, Xiao Yan had suppressed the three of them by himself. Just based on this point alone, they had no choice but to believe Morong Chanqian's words. However, just as the heavenly eagle trio thought that the young lady had stopped speaking, the latter opened her mouth once again. The hearts of the three people in front of her immediately tightened when she spoke. "It's not over yet. I originally thought that it would be fine if those humans were involved. However, I never expected that even the magical beasts of the Shilin mountain range would dare to touch me. If it was not for Xiao Yan, I'm afraid that you would not have been able to see me." Morong Chanqian angrily rebuked. Her gaze stared at the three people in front of her and coldly said, "They are all your subordinates. I must settle this debt with you." Ugh! The three of them endlessly complained in their hearts when they heard this. Since the matter had already developed to such a state, regardless of whether it was true or false, it was likely that they could no longer touch Xiao Yan. The reason why Morong Chanqian would say all this was likely because of Xiao Yan. The three of them looked at each other as their hearts were filled with bitter smiles. From the looks of it, not only were they unable to touch Xiao Yan, they even had to be deeply grateful to him. After all, it was just as Morong Chanqian herself had said, regardless of how important the Eastern Wall was, it was still insignificant when compared to her life. Immediately, the three of them faced each other. They looked at each other and immediately understood each other in their hearts. After which, they turned their gazes to Xiao Yan in unison. They cupped their hands to him and said with a smile, they cupped their hands and said, "Haha, there were many misunderstandings earlier. I hope that Sir Xiao Yan can disregard the former enmity. The three of us will first apologize to Sir Xiao Yan." As their voices fell, the three of them simultaneously bowed and cupped their hands towards Xiao Yan. Seeing this, the latter also hurriedly cupped his hands. At the same time, Xiao Yan also turned his gaze towards Morong Chanqian and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The young girl also gave a charming smile and immediately retracted her gaze. Her expression once again returned to its previous cold and indifferent appearance. Looking at the three people in front of her, she curled her lips and said, "Ugh, how should I settle this debt with you?" Hearing the young girl's tone that was filled with ridicule, the three of them could not help but have a bad premonition. "How about this? Xiao Yan has saved my life and is this young Miss Savior. As long as the three of you are able to satisfy one of his requests, this young miss will consider this matter over. How about it? Do all of you agree?" The young girl's tone towards the end of her words gave one the feeling that she could not be refuted. With regards to this, the three of them were even more speechless. They looked at each other and the three of them had an expression that wanted to cry but had no tears. Only then did they hurriedly and respectfully said to Morong Chanqian, "This matter will be arranged by young miss." Seeing this, Morong Chanqian turned her head and looked towards Xiao Yan. Her gaze seemed to be asking Xiao Yan if he was satisfied. The latter involuntarily laughed when he saw this. The young girl also smiled. She turned her head and ordered the three of them, "Let's go to your old nest first. The injuries within this young miss body have yet to recover." The young girl seemed to have suddenly recalled something after her voice sounded. At the same time as she flew towards the west, her pretty face also appeared crimson. After which, Xiao Yan once again cupped his hands together towards Tianning and the other two. He looked at Morong Chanqian's graceful back, shook his head and smiled before following. Tianning only frowned and sighed after he had pulled some distance away from the two of them. His pale face appeared somewhat ugly at this moment. Humph! This fellow destroyed the Eastern Wall and nearly caused a great disaster. Now, he actually found young miss as a protective talisman. However, there will come a day when this king will make you pay the price. Tianning bitterly clenched his teeth and spoke with a pause between each word. However, Xionggang once again frowned in response to these words. His rough fingers rubbed his chin as he raised his eyes to look at Xiao Yan's back. It was a long while later before he said in a deep voice, "Boss, from what I see, perhaps we were indeed wrong about Xiao Yan destroying the Eastern Wall. Him destroying the Eastern Wall might not be a bad thing." "Oh!" Tianning and the flame lion by the side immediately frowned after these words were spoken. Their faces were gloomy as they looked at Xionggang. The two of them immediately felt uncomfortable in their hearts when they heard Xiongang's words. However, Xionggang inhaled a deep breath of air in response to this. He mused for a moment before he raised his eyes and opened his mouth to speak to the two beside him. All of you should know that the eastern wall needs to be repaired once every 100 years. However, the both of you should also have a deep understanding during the repair process. After hundreds of years of accumulation, the cold chi has become increasingly severe. At this moment, even if the three of us were to join forces, it would be difficult to completely suppress it. Tian-Ing and the Flame Lion exchanged glances when they heard Xiongang's words. Their faces involuntarily revealed a doubtful expression. They were well aware of this information. However, Xionggang had once again brought it up. It should not be without reason. Soon after, Xionggang continued, "This time around, if we were to really wait for the eastern wall to be broken by the cold chi in one go, it is likely that the three of us would no longer be able to suppress it. However, after the collapse of the eastern wall this time around, I have discovered that it was precisely because of Xiao Yan that he had unintentionally dug out the crack under the eastern wall. The cold chi had also spread quite a bit. This will also prevent us from creating more trouble in the future. Therefore, I believe that on the whole, Xiao Yan destroying the eastern wall this time around did not harm us. Instead, it has indeed created an opportunity for us to take the initiative. Perhaps in this way, we will be able to delay the time when the cold chi completely erupts for a while." Tian-Ing and the Flame Lion immediately looked at each other when Xiongang's words were spoken. The two of them frowned and pondered for a moment. Only then did they understand the clues within. According to what Xionggang had said at this moment, in addition to the words that Murong Chanqian had said earlier, not only could they not blame Xiao Yan, they should instead thank him. The three of them raised their heads and looked at Xiao Yan's blurry back at the end of their sight. The expressions on their faces gradually became more complicated. Chapter 462. Humph. Brat, it's too early for you to be happy. Earlier, you were merely lucky. I don't believe that your strength can increase by much in 3 months. Tianying's blue eyes were immediately filled with fury when he saw the faint smile on Xiao Yan's face. His mouth let out a stern cry as he waved his large hand. The fingers on both of his hands curled slightly as they transformed into claws. His feet suddenly stepped on empty air and his body suddenly shot forward. The claws on his hands danced and tore through the empty air, carrying a wave of ear-piercing sonic booms. Hearing Sky Eagle's words, the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth curled up slightly. The tip of his foot lightly tapped on the void. His body was like a small boat that gently swayed in the void. His body tilted to the left side of the void. In the next instant, one could only see a claw that carried an unparalleled might close to Xiao Yan's face and brushed past Xiao Yan's right side. 3 months' time is enough to change a lot of things. For example, the difference in strength between you and me. As his indifferent voice drifted out, Xiao Yan's body turned around and he casually used the Sky Extinction steps. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived behind Sky Eagle. Ah! Sky Eagle was once again shocked. He hurriedly stopped his body that was charging forward. At the same time, his body turned around and he ferociously clawed at Xiao Yan who was behind him. Xiao Yan's emotionless eyes stared at the rapidly expanding claw in front of him. His expression did not change in the slightest. The corners of his mouth curled up and he suddenly raised the hand behind his back. With a thought, a layer of purple-gold dragon scales instantly covered his entire right arm. With a twist of his wrist, his 5 fingers clenched into a fist. With a clang sound, his fist violently collided with Sky Eagle's claw. Bang! When the two collided, the surrounding void immediately collapsed. A formless energy ripple suddenly spread out. Xiao Yan's body violently shook. His body that was standing in the void did not move at all. On the other hand, the anger in Sky Eagle's eyes rapidly receded after this attack. Instead, it was replaced by a deeply solemn expression. Middle 5-star half-martial emperor. How is this possible? One must know that 3 months ago, Xiao Yan's strength had clearly only reached the 5th-star half-martial emperor realm not long ago. How could he have reached the middle stage of the 5th-star half-martial emperor realm in less than half a year? Moreover, with Xiao Yan's frightening agility and speed, even when he was only a 5-star half-martial emperor, he was already able to leave a 9-star half-martial emperor in the dust. It was hard to imagine that in the future, even a Do Di would not be able to do anything to him. Yan Shi and Xionggang involuntarily frowned when they saw that Xiao Yan and Tianying were actually evenly matched in the fight. When the two of them heard the shocked words from Tianying's mouth, their expressions involuntarily changed. However, when Murong Chanqian, who was in the mountain forest below, saw this scene, she felt disbelief in her heart. This guy. Could it be that he's hiding his strength? Otherwise, how could there be such a monster in this world? Murong Chantian's face was filled with shock as she watched the scene in the sky. Her mouth involuntarily exclaimed. With the strength of a 5-star half-martial emperor, he was evenly matched with a 9-star half-martial emperor. It was likely that this kind of battle result had never appeared even in the entire continent. Nothing is impossible. It's just that the world in your eyes is too small. Hearing Tianying's words of disbelief, Xiao Yan merely smiled. His extended fist violently shook. An enormous force was emitted, causing Tianying and Xiao Yan to both take a couple of steps back. The two of them raised their gazes. The expression in their eyes were different. Brat, how arrogant. Let's attack together and take him down. Seeing that Tianying was actually unable to suppress Xiao Yan's aura, Xionggang immediately took a step forward. His eyes angrily glared at Xiao Yan as the dou qi within his body surged out. Ha 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 ha. Indeed, this brat is making me more and more curious. A mere 5-star half-martial emperor is actually able to erupt with a strength that even we don't dare to underestimate. I really want to know exactly where you came from. The flame lion's face revealed a hungry expression as he laughed loudly. Soon after, a stern cry was emitted from his mouth. His body suddenly shook and scarlet-red dou qi immediately crazily surged out from all the pores on his body. At the same time, his feet ferociously stomped on the air and violently charged towards Xiao Yan. In the blink of an eye, the flame lion had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. He waved his enormous fist. Scarlet-red dou qi was like a flame that covered the flame lion's fist as it pounced towards Xiao Yan. Facing the flame lion's overbearing attack, Xiao Yan's expression was extremely calm. When the enormous fist arrived in front of Xiao Yan, the latter's body leaned back slightly. At the same time, his feet moved and he instantly used the sky extinction steps. In the next moment, the flame lion's enormous fist penetrated Xiao Yan's body. Only then did the former react. It turned out that the person in front of him was actually an afterimage. Afterimage! The flame lion exclaimed. The expression on his face also changed. His body abruptly turned on the spot and the flame lion violently threw a punch behind him as if it was a conditioned reflex. Bang! With a loud bang, Xiao Yan's body suddenly shook. The two of them both moved back. At the same time, a cold smile appeared on Xiao Yan's face. He waved his large hand and a beautiful heavenly flame immediately surged out, sweeping towards the flame lion from all directions. Bang! The powerful dou qi was mixed with a frightening hot flame. It was like a vast ocean as it violently poured down towards the flame lion from all directions. Faced with this sudden heavenly flame wind, the expression on the flame lion's face instantly changed. However, before he could do anything, the heavenly flame wind had already landed on his body. Grug! The frightening heavenly flame violently smashed onto the flame lion's chest, causing the flame lion's face to instantly turn red. The ribs on his chest repeatedly emitted a bone-cracking sound. Soon after, a large mouthful of bright red fresh blood was finally violently spat out by the flame lion. His body also uncontrollably flew backwards and was caught by Xionggang, who was behind him. Insolent brat! You will definitely pay the price for this. Xionggang raised his head. Fury churned in his eyes as he spoke sternly to Xiao Yan. I have already heard such words far too many times. However, I am still me. Swoosh! Sky Eagle's body flashed. Its sharp claws directly grabbed at Xiao Yan's throat. Brat! You have challenged our patience time and time again. Today, even if you earn some extra money, this king will definitely keep you here. With a stern cry, Tianying's body had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan. A pair of azure eyes were dyed with a scarlet red at this moment. A bloody scar gradually appeared within his heart. Blood Eagle Curse! A scarlet blood-like fog suddenly surged out from within the heavenly eagle's body after the hoarse cry sounded. It lingered around the heavenly eagle's body. Numerous strange lines surfaced on its pair of white claws and the heavenly eagle's speed instantly soared. Chapter 463. Secret Technique The expression on Xiao Yan's face involuntarily became a little startled when he sensed the powerful aura being emitted from Tianying's body. His body quickly pulled back while his mouth muttered in a deep voice. Soon after, the heavenly eagle followed close behind like a maggot in one's bones. Blood-red dough qi agglomerated on the tip of its finger, transforming into numerous sharp thorns. At the same time that Xiao Yan's body was withdrawing, the thorns followed close behind and violently slashed at Xiao Yan's chest. Even though Xiao Yan's speed was quite fast, Tianying's secret technique was to change one's sight. Xiao Yan was unable to dodge in time. Hence, he could only watch as Tianying's sharp claws ruthlessly landed on his chest. Sizzle! The black robe on the surface of Xiao Yan's body was instantly torn apart amidst the dazzling sparks, revealing the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor that covered Xiao Yan's entire body. The sharp thorns violently brushed against Xiao Yan's Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. An extremely ear-piercing creaking sound was emitted. The dragon scales in front of Xiao Yan's chest were forcefully torn apart by the sharp thorns, forming 5 scarlet bloody scars. Bright red fresh blood swiftly flowed out from the wounds, appearing quite glaring. Ha! Tianying's heart became even more ferocious after his successful attack. He waved his left arm and the other 5 sharp thorns instantly slashed across Xiao Yan's chest. They were even more vicious as they left behind 5 deep scars on Xiao Yan's chest. Grog! The expression on Xiao Yan's face immediately paled after receiving this heavy blow. He immediately spat out a large mouthful of fresh blood. His body also swiftly retreated to the back with even greater speed. Behind Xiao Yan, Xiongang's body suddenly shook when he saw Xiao Yan charging toward him. The brown-yellow dough qi within his body swiftly surged out. His strong body suddenly moved and was just like a small mountain as he violently charged toward the retreating Xiao Yan. Humph! Xiao Yan's eyes immediately became cold when he saw Tianying and Xionggang, one in front and one behind. The corner of his mouth, which was dyed with blood, was lifted into a mocking cold smile. At a certain moment, Xiao Yan's retreating body suddenly stopped in the air. He raised both of his hands and numerous complicated seals swiftly changed. In the next moment, when the two were only a few dozen feet away from Xiao Yan fiercely shouted in his mind. Tense of the 6 paths. Rise! At the same time, behind Xiao Yan, a strange pitch-black barrier condensed in an instant. At the moment when the 2 people rushed in front and behind him, Xiao Yan smiled coldly. His body leaned back and disappeared into the barrier behind him. Then, boom! Xiao Yan's figure slowly appeared in the empty sky. His face carried a mocking expression as he looked at the spot where he had been standing earlier. At this moment, Tianying and Xionggang were retreating in a somewhat miserable manner. Xiao Yan's sudden action earlier had caused the 2 of them to appear extremely miserable. The 2 of them paused. Immediately, their eyes that were filled with anger suddenly turned and landed on Xiao Yan. Brat! You actually dared to trick us! Tianying's heart was filled with anger as he looked at Xiao Yan. He waved his hand and a countless number of sharp thorns immediately gathered around his body. The sharp thorns were pointed at Xiao Yan. Haha, you are asking for trouble. How can you blame me? Xiao Yan crossed his arms in front of his chest. His eyes looked at Tianying and Xionggang as he laughed coldly. Roar! Brat! Eat a punch from this king first. Xiao Yan's words had just sounded when Xionggang roared furiously. His strong body suddenly moved and once again charged towards Xiao Yan. At the same time, Tianying also waved his large hand. The countless number of sharp thorns seemed to have grown eyes as they swiftly shot towards Xiao Yan. His body once again stepped on empty air and swiftly charged towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan laughed coldly when he saw this. Tianying had used the opportunity to injure him earlier. However, at this moment, the distance between the 2 of them was over 1,000 feet. It would not be so easy to injure him now. Humph! Xiao Yan snorted coldly. Both of his hands were once again lifted and the seals changed. The dough qi within his body also swiftly flowed out at this moment. At the same time, the distance between Xiao Yan and Tianying swiftly shrunk. In the blink of an eye, there was less than 100 feet of distance between them. Xiao Yan split his attention. On one hand, he swiftly formed the complicated seals in his hands. On the other hand, he repeatedly dodged those sharp thorns. At the same time, he also needed to prepare to deal with these 2 who were about to arrive. Ha! Brat, prepare to die! A thunder-like stern cry was suddenly emitted. Xiongang's small mountain-like body was the first to charge. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Xiongang's large hand clenched in empty air. Dough qi swiftly gathered in his palm. At the same time that Xiongang's hand was raised high, an enormous stone hammer was also formed in his hand. Xionggang raised the enormous stone hammer in his hand, which was more than half the size of Xiao Yan's body. His face carried a ferocious expression as he smashed it towards Xiao Yan's head. At the same time, Tianning had already arrived behind Xionggang. Compared to Xionggang, his heart was filled with suspicion as he looked at Xiao Yan. There was a faint premonition in his heart. In the next instant, Xiao Yan suddenly opened his mouth wide when the enormous stone hammer in Xiongang's hand descended. At the same time, an earth-shaking cry was emitted from Xiao Yan's mouth. Yellow Spring Divine Fury. Mao Mao Mao. In an instant, the souls of the two in front of Xiao Yan suddenly shook. Their bodies also froze at this moment. The enormous hammer that was descending towards Xiao Yan's head also paused for an instant. Soon after, when the two of them recovered, a beautiful fire wheel was also formed in Xiao Yan's hand. Angry Buddha Reincarnation. A faint voice was slowly emitted. At the same time, the fire wheel in Xiao Yan's hand flickered slightly. In the blink of an eye, a shocking dark black energy light pillar shot out from the wheel. With one strike, it sent Xionggang and Tianning, who were in front of Xiao Yan, flying. The two of them, who were sent flying by the energy light pillar, were directly buried deep into the mountain forest below. Immediately, the sky shook and the entire world began to tremble intensely. Whew! Xiao Yan heaved a long sigh of relief after sending the two of them back. Using a Do skill that exhausted a lot of energy in succession was still quite a big burden for the current Xiao Yan. If it was not because he had activated the strength of the Dragon Phoenix bloodline right from the start, it was likely that this battle would not be as easy as it appeared to be. Of course, the attack earlier did not cause them any real harm. Although those attacks appeared to be heavy, the strength of the three of them was still there for all to see. How could it be so easy for Xiao Yan to seriously injure them? Hence, Xiao Yan held back in each of his attacks. He only hoped that they would be able to understand this little bit of his intentions. Xiao Yan was really unwilling to become enemies with the three great kings of the Shilin mountain range. The current Xiao Yan had already made quite a number of enemies. If he were to provoke these magical beasts as well, it would be a huge problem for Xiao Yan. Before he possessed the strength to truly suppress them, Xiao Yan did not wish to go overboard with them. However, the tree wanted to be still, but the wind did not stop. The moment Xiao Yan withdrew the angry Buddha reincarnation, a human figure suddenly appeared in the empty space beside Xiao Yan. As the figure twisted, a terrifying whip kick that could split mountains and split the earth violently smashed towards Xiao Yan's head. Humph! Xiao Yan had already sensed this long ago. Hence, when the latter appeared, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. His entire body was immediately surrounded by a golden light. In the blink of an eye, he had already turned into a giant Vajra god. Get lost! Faced with the latter's fatal attack, Xiao Yan flipped his hand and grabbed the latter's leg. With a wave of his arm, he was about to violently throw the latter away. However, at this moment, Xiao Yan... Wait. Chapter 464. In the boundless sky, the young lady's clear voice was unhurriedly transmitted over, causing Xiao Yan's hand movements to instantly become sluggish. His brows, which were covered by the golden light, frowned slightly. His gaze withdrew and looked at where Murong Chanqian was at this moment. At the same time, Murong Chanqian, who was on the ground, also swiftly got up. The tip of her feet lightly tapped on the ground. Her delicate body moved and she quickly flew towards Xiao Yan in the sky. Roar! After being restrained by Xiao Yan, the expression on the flame lion's face changed slightly. However, it immediately saw that Xiao Yan had actually stopped moving. Immediately, it once again circulated the Do Qi in its body, intending to forcefully escape from Xiao Yan's hands. Humph! Seeing that the flame lion actually still wanted to attack, Xiao Yan immediately snorted angrily. His right hand, which was grabbing onto the flame lion's body, suddenly pulled back forcefully. The flame lion's body was instantly pulled uncontrollably by Xiao Yan into the empty space in front of him. Immediately after, before the flame lion could recover, Xiao Yan's hand, which was grabbing onto the ladder, suddenly loosened. The instant it was pulled back, it was tightly clenched into a fist. By the time the flame lion recovered, Xiao Yan's fist had already solidly landed on the flame lion's body. Puchi! Immediately, fresh blood splattered everywhere. The flame lion's body also flew out uncontrollably. Its entire aura also rapidly decreased. After which, the flame lion was just like the previous two and violently smashed into a mountain forest below. After that, Murong Chanqian leaped into the air and arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Seeing that Xiao Yan had actually sent the flame lion flying, Murong Chanqian could not help but frown slightly. She curled her lips and looked at Xiao Yan, saying, "Didn't I tell you to wait? Why did you still attack?" Hearing Murong Chanqian's somewhat complaining words, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. His pitch-black eyes stared at the latter and said in a deep voice, "He has already attacked me and you still want me to wait? Could it be that you want me to wait until he kills me before I make my move?" The young lady was immediately speechless when she heard this. What Xiao Yan said was right. After all, it was the flame lion who had attacked first. At this moment, she was blaming Xiao Yan for no reason. It was likely that no one would be able to endure this. Murong Chanqian curled her lips slightly. While feeling helpless in her heart, Murong Chanqian could only shift her slightly worried gaze towards the mountain forest below. After a few intense clashes between Xiao Yan and Tianying's group, several huge pits had already appeared in the mountain forest. The three of them were currently lying within. Rest assured, they are fine. How could a Grand 9-star half-martial emperor be so easily dealt with? Seeming to have seen through the apprehension in the young girl's heart, Xiao Yan already understood in his heart that the young girl in front of him was likely related to these three fellows. Otherwise, she would not have remained here even after Xiao Yan's warning. Even more so, she would not have called out to stop Xiao Yan at such a crucial moment. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the expression on the young girl's pretty face became slightly better. Immediately after, she turned around and sized up Xiao Yan from head to toe. An extraordinary splendor circulated within her beautiful eyes. Seeing the expression that was revealed within the young girl's eyes, Xiao Yan could not help but curl his lips slightly. He could even imagine what Murong Chanqian was going to say next. "Xiao Yan, you're really only a 5-star half-martial emperor." Before the young girl's words left her mouth, Xiao Yan interrupted her. Faced with this sort of doubt toward his strength, Xiao Yan did not know how many times he had heard it. Could it be that these people judged people based on their cultivation? Hearing the words spoken by Xiao Yan, the expression on the young girl's pretty face became even more suspicious. However, at the same time, deep astonishment was also revealed in her beautiful eyes. Suppressing 3 9-star half-martial emperors with the strength of a 5-star half-martial emperor, this sort of battle accomplishment could be said to be terrifying. Even with Murong Chanqian's experience, this sort of battle accomplishment was something that she had never heard of from any of the elders in her clan, much less those ancient records. However, right at the moment when the young girl was about to speak again, several voices filled with astonishment suddenly sounded from the mountain forest below. "Eldest Miss, why are you here?" As the voices sounded, Murong Chanqian turned her head around to look. As for Xiao Yan, his eyes were slightly narrowed as he thought in his heart. Immediately after, he smiled and slowly dispersed the Vajra-colored glass body. The oppressive aura that was released from his body was also absorbed back into his body. Since he had confirmed the relationship between the young girl before him and these three people, Xiao Yan believed that there should not be any more conflicts in the future. Of course, if there were, Xiao Yan was also confident that he would be able to calmly deal with these three people. "So the 4-star half-martial emperor that we investigated was you, eldest miss. After not seeing you for a few years, eldest Miss's strength has actually reached such a level. You truly make the three of us blush with shame." Xiao Yan's eyes turned and saw the current Tianying trio. After receiving a heavy blow from Xiao Yan, the three of them were injured. This was especially the case for Xionggang. He had directly received a Buddha's angry reincarnation from Xiao Yan. That frightening strength directly broke the layer of rock armor on the surface of his body. His entire body was dyed with fresh blood. The injuries within his body were sufficient for him to rest for a period of time. The three of them stepped forward. When they saw Murong Chanqian in front of Xiao Yan, they first sighed with their mouths. Soon after they frowned. Their gazes swept towards Xiao Yan behind from time to time. Their eyes ultimately contained a cautious expression. "Eldest Miss, why are you together with him?" A moment later, Tianying, who had recovered to his normal state, finally could not resist turning his eyes to Murong Chanqian in front of him and softly asked. His mouth revealed a pale white expression. Murong Chanqian glanced at Xiao Yan, who was standing behind her, after hearing the words from Tianying's mouth. Her mouth parted into a smile as she said, Why, do you have a grudge with him? Tianying was immediately stunned when he heard this. He immediately laughed and said, Ugh, this can't be considered a grudge. However, he destroyed the eastern wall and nearly caused the cold current to sweep across the entire Shilin mountain range. This matter is closely related to him. Eldest Miss. Oh. The expression on Murong Chanqian's small face involuntarily became a little stunned when she heard this. She immediately turned her head to look at Xiao Yan. The eastern wall had been destroyed. Even she did not dare to casually ignore this matter. However, what Murong Chanqian did not expect was that with Xiao Yan's strength, he was actually able to destroy the wall that was created by the combined strength of 3 9-star half-emperors. However, the young lady thought about it again. Earlier, she had personally witnessed Xiao Yan suppressing 3 9-star half-emperors with the strength of a 5-star half-emperor. Naturally, he possessed the ability to destroy the wall. Therefore, Murong Chanqian's heart felt relieved. Xiao Yan also frowned when he heard the words from Tianying's mouth. He was extremely helpless in his heart with regards to that deep gorge. He could only blame the cold current for being too frightening. Back then, Xiao Yan had only shattered the glacier in a fit of anger. Who could have imagined that things would end up in such a manner? Xiao Yan could only helplessly spread out his hands when he saw Murong Chanqian's gaze shooting over. The latter involuntarily rolled her eyes at Xiao Yan upon seeing this. Only then did she turn her gaze back and once again looked at Tianying's group. She pursed her lips and laughed. Indeed, him destroying the eastern wall is indeed a major matter. You all also have a reason to attack him. However, what about this eldest miss? Xiao Yan had saved this eldest miss's life several times. Although the eastern wall is extremely important, could it be more important than this eldest miss's life? Chapter 465. Once Murong Chanqian's words were spoken, the expressions of the heavenly eagle trio in front of her instantly changed. Their eyes revealed a shocked expression. If something happened to this great ant in front of them in their territory, they would not be able to keep their heads. Seeing this, Murong Chanqian coldly snorted. The expression on her pretty face immediately became displeased. She glanced at the 3 people in front of her and spoke with a tone filled with complaints. A month ago, I was chased by a group of people and nearly lost my life in their hands. It was Xiao Yan who saved me. At that time there was a 9-star half-emperor in that group. In order to save me, Xiao Yan used all his strength to kill them all. When she finished speaking, Murong Chanqian took advantage of the shock on the faces of the 3 people in front of her to playfully glance at Xiao Yan. In response, Xiao Yan could only helplessly shrug his shoulders. At the same time, the expressions on the faces of the heavenly eagle trio abruptly changed. The 3 of them looked at each other. In their hearts, they believed 70 to 80% of Murong Chanqian's words. After all, if it was someone else, they might not believe it. However, Xiao Yan had just suppressed the 3 of them by himself. Just based on this point alone, they had no choice but to believe Murong Chanqian's words. However, just as the heavenly eagle trio thought that the young lady had stopped speaking, the latter opened her mouth once again. The hearts of the 3 people in front of her immediately tightened when she spoke. It's not over yet. I originally thought that it would be fine if it was those humans. However, I never expected that even the magical beasts of the Shilin mountain range would dare to touch me. If it was not for Xiao Yan, I'm afraid that you would not have been able to see me. Murong Chanqian angrily rebuked. Immediately, her gaze stared at the 3 people in front of her and coldly said, They are all your subordinates. I must settle this debt with all of you. Ugh! The 3 of them cried incessantly in their hearts when they heard this. Since the matter had already developed to such a state, regardless of whether it was true or false, it was likely that they could no longer touch Xiao Yan. The reason why Murong Chanqian would say all this was likely because of Xiao Yan. The 3 of them looked at each other as their hearts were filled with bitter smiles. From the looks of it, not only were they unable to touch Xiao Yan, they even had to be deeply grateful to him. After all, it was just as Murong Chanqian had said herself. Regardless of how important the eastern wall was, it was still insignificant when compared to her life. Immediately, the 3 of them Murong Chanqian looked at each other and immediately understood each other in their hearts. Of them simultaneously turned their gazes toward Xiao Yan. Haha, there were many misunderstandings before. I hope that Sir Xiao Yan can disregard the former enmity. The 3 of us will first apologize to Sir Xiao Yan. As their voices fell, The three of them simultaneously bowed and cupped their hands towards Xiao Yan. Seeing this, the latter also hurriedly cupped his hands. At the same time, Xiao Yan also turned his gaze towards Murong Qianqian. A slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The young girl also charmingly smiled. Soon after, she withdrew her gaze. Her expression once again returned to its previous cold and indifferent appearance. Looking at the three people in front of her, she curled her lips and said, How should I settle this debt with all of you?" Hearing the young girl's tone that was filled with ridicule, the three of them could not help but have a bad premonition in their hearts. "How about this? Xiao Yan has saved my life and is this young Miss Savior. As long as the three of you are able to satisfy one of his requests, this young miss will consider this matter over. How about it, do you agree?" The young girl's tone towards the end of her words gave one the feeling that she could not be refuted. In this regard, the three of them were even more speechless. They looked at each other. The three of them had an expression that wanted to cry but had no tears. Only then did they hurriedly and respectfully say to Murong Qianqian, "This matter will be arranged by young miss." Seeing this, Murong Qianqian finally turned her head and looked towards Xiao Yan. Her gaze seemed to be asking Xiao Yan if he was satisfied. The latter involuntarily laughed when he saw this. The young girl also smiled. She turned her head and ordered the three of them, "Let's go to your old nest first. The injuries within this young miss body have yet to recover." The young girl seemed to have suddenly recalled something after her voice sounded. At the same time, she flew towards the west. Her pretty face also appeared crimson. After which, Xiao Yan once again cupped his hands together towards Tianning and the other two. He looked at Murong Qianqian's graceful back, shook his head and smiled. After which he followed. Tianning only frowned and sighed after he had pulled some distance away from the two of them. His pale face appeared somewhat ugly at this moment. Humph! This fellow destroyed the eastern wall and nearly caused a great disaster. Now, he actually found young miss to act as a protective talisman. However, there will come a day when this king will make you pay the price. Tianning bitterly clenched his teeth and spoke with a pause between each word. However, Xionggang once again frowned in response to these words. His rough fingers rubbed his chin as he raised his eyes to look at Xiao Yan's back. It was a long while later before he said in a deep voice, "Boss, from what I see, perhaps we were indeed wrong about Xiao Yan destroying the eastern wall. Him destroying the eastern wall might not be a bad thing." "Oh." Tianning and the flame lion by the side immediately frowned after these words were spoken. Their faces were gloomy as they looked at Xionggang. The two of them immediately felt uncomfortable in their hearts when they heard Xiongang's words. However, Xionggang inhaled a deep breath of air in response to this. He mused for a moment before he raised his eyes and opened his mouth to speak to the two beside him. "All of you should know that the eastern wall needs to be repaired once every 100 years. However, the both of you should also have a deep understanding during the repair process. After hundreds of years of accumulation, the cold qi has become increasingly severe. At this moment, even if the three of us were to join forces, it would be difficult to completely suppress it." Tianning and the flame lion exchanged glances when they heard Xiongang's words. Their faces involuntarily revealed a doubtful expression. They were well aware of this information. However, Xionggang had once again brought it up. It should not be without reason. Soon after, Xionggang continued, "This time around, if we were to really wait for the eastern wall to be broken by the cold qi in one go, it is likely that the three of us would no longer be able to suppress it. However, after the collapse of the eastern wall this time around, I have discovered that it was precisely because of Xiao Yan that he had unintentionally dug out the crack under the eastern wall. The cold qi had also spread quite a bit. This will also prevent us from creating more trouble in the future. Therefore, I believe that on the whole, Xiao Yan destroying the eastern wall this time around did not harm us. Instead, it has indeed created an opportunity for us to take the initiative. Perhaps this way, we will be able to delay the time when the cold qi completely erupts for a period of time." Tianning and the flame lion immediately looked at each other when Xiongang's words were spoken. The two of them frowned and pondered for a moment. Only then did they understand the clues within. According to what Xionggang had said at this moment, in addition to the words that Murong Qianqian had said earlier, not only could they not blame Xiao Yan, they should instead thank him. The three of them raised their heads and looked at Xiao Yan's blurry back at the edge of their sight. The expressions on their faces gradually became more complicated. Chapter 466. Moreover, according to what I know, In addition to Shangren Tianjue's Genesis Qi inheritance, there is also Shangren Tianjue's spirit source power in the three great halls. Xiao Yan's expression changed the moment Tian Ying's words sounded. At this moment, Tian Ying lifted his eyes. A pair of azure eyes stared at Xiao Yan. His face was filled with a smile. You mean spirit source power? Although very surprised by this news, Xiao Yan could not help but ask. Relatively speaking, there would more or less be a strength inheritance in the cave dwelling of some experts. However, spirit source power that Tianing mentioned was extremely rare. After all, the soul was the foundation of a living being. It was already considered a great favor for an ordinary expert to leave behind the inheritance of their strength at the end of their life. However, it was almost impossible for them to leave behind the power of their soul. When a person died, their soul would be extinguished. However, when a mortal died, their soul would follow them. This could be considered as the last thing that the deceased had left behind. However, he had actually left his soul origin energy in this world. This was clearly a deliberate act of giving away everything he had. Generally speaking, people who could do such a thing were generally seniors in some forces. Before they died, they would leave everything to their juniors so that they could improve the overall strength of their juniors. It could also be considered as a contribution to the future of the whole force. However, in the entire continent, the number of times that Tianju did such a thing was very few. That's right, it is spirit source power. Hee, I know that Mr. Xiao Yan is an alchemist, and your grade is definitely not low. Ordinary things naturally won't catch your eye, but if it's related to spirit source power, Mr. Xiao Yan will definitely not let it go so easily. Xiao Yan stared at the space in front of him. His fingertips under his sleeves gently rubbed the storage ring on his finger. A moment later, a glint flashed in his eyes and he nodded slightly at Tian Ying. He was indeed quite concerned about spirit source power. However, the main point was not for himself, but for Xiao Xian, who was still in the jade bottle and was only left with a remnant spirit. Tian Ying could not help but raise his brows when he saw Xiao Yan's appearance. Soon after, he smiled again and did not think too much about it. Besides this, there is also the most precious thing in Tianju's tomb. The value of this thing can be said to be completely above Shangren Tianjue's inheritance. As his voice sounded, the expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed. His mouth was wide open and his eyes were wide open. His dark black eyes revealed a deep shock. The expression on his entire face appeared extremely interesting at this moment. Xiao Yan originally thought that Tian Ying would only give him this information after he had heard about what had happened. He never imagined that Tian Ying would throw another heavy bomb at this moment. An item that was worth more than the lifetime legacy of a returnance expert could truly be regarded as a shocking treasure. Tian Ying could not help but smile when he saw the shock on Xiao Yan's face again. In reality, his expression was even more exaggerated than Xiao Yan's when he first received the news. I wonder what kind of accessory it is. It's actually worth more than Shangren Tianjue's inheritance? It was a long while later before Xiao Yan finally withdrew the emotions within his heart. He cupped his hands to Tian Ying and asked in a serious voice. Tian Ying casually waved his hand when he saw that. He frowned slightly and thought for a moment before saying, I don't really know what it is. I don't remember exactly what that thing is, but I am certain that it is a cultivation method. That cultivation method is the source of Lord Tianju's strength. Ugh! Xiao Yan could not help but pout inside when he heard that. If it was some other treasure, he really might be tempted. However, no matter how heaven-defying it was, Xiao Yan would not be tempted by it if it was only a cultivation method. After all, having practiced the flame mantra, Xiao Yan was unable to raise the slightest interest in other qi methods. Tian Ying naturally did not discover the thoughts in Xiao Yan's heart. Hence, he merely paused for a moment before continuing to speak. Yeah, I remember the name of the cultivation method. It seems to be called the B-the returnance technique, and its grade doesn't seem to be low either. It's already at the level of an intent tier cultivation method. This is what I learned from the jade slip that I received the information from back then. However, I'm not sure how much of it is true, but I do hope it's true, hee. Xiao Yan nodded. He did not seem to care about this. No matter how precious the cultivation method was, it could not be compared to his blaze mantra. However, just as Xiao Yan was about to ignore it, Gu Yu, who was in his body, suddenly spoke. Brat, you have to ask more clearly whether that cultivation method is the returnance technique. Ha! Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed after Gu Yu's words sounded. He frowned and a surprise involuntarily rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked Gu Yu, "Old Gu, do you know what the returnance technique is?" "Don't ask too much. When the time comes, you will naturally know. For you, there are only benefits and no disadvantages. But for now, it's best that you ask more about that cultivation method and confirm whether that cultivation method is the returnance art or not." Xiao Yan immediately felt a great curiosity towards this so-called returnance technique when he heard Gu Yu's somewhat serious tone. This returnance technique was likely extraordinary if it was treated so seriously by someone like Gu Yu. At the same time, Tianying also saw the change in expression on Xiao Yan's face. Tianying could not help but feel suspicious when he saw the huge contrast in Xiao Yan's expression. At this moment, Xiao Yan once again asked Tianying, "Brother Tianying, can you confirm what the name of that cultivation method is?" "Ugh." Tianying could not help but be stunned when he heard this. He frowned slightly and looked at Xiao Yan with a strange gaze. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered when he saw this. He paused for a moment before he laughed dryly and said, "Hee hee. It is just that I suddenly recalled that my master once had a friend. The cultivation method that he practiced seemed to be called the returnance technique. Now that I think about it, I feel curious." Tianying's eyes flickered when he heard Xiao Yan's words. He smiled but did not hide anything. He frowned and thought for a moment before he nodded and said with certainty, "That's right. That's right. If the news is true, then this cultivation technique should be the origin returning technique." Tianying's words had just sounded when he seemed to have recalled something. He hurriedly opened his mouth and said to Xiao Yan, "That's right. That's right. In addition, the jade slip I obtained at that time also mentioned that this cultivation method can allow people below the half-step emperor realm to cultivate without any bottlenecks. Although I don't know if this can be confirmed, this is the most information I know. As for the other information, I'm afraid you can only wait until the ancient tomb opens before you can understand it yourself." Xiao Yan slowly nodded when he heard Tianying's words. At the same time, he confirmed with Gu Yu in his heart. A moment later, a soft yes was emitted from Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan sighed in relief. Although he was still unclear about the so-called returnance technique, Xiao Yan would never doubt Gu Yu's words. Chapter 467. After understanding this point, Tianying's heart involuntarily felt aghast at Murong Qianqian's thoughts. Everyone said that this little witch of his was brainless and only knew how to cause trouble. However, from the looks of it now, this was not the case. Of course, while Tianying thought of this point, he did not expect that even though he had already roughly guessed Murong Qianqian's thoughts, there was still another layer that he did not expect. A beauty loves a hero. Xiao Yan's rescue a couple of times as well as his earlier performance had unknowingly caused an unknown complicated emotion to rise in Murong Qianqian's heart. Perhaps she herself was unaware of this. Xiao Yan's face was calm during the boring journey. His gaze would occasionally look towards the distant sky as he pondered over something in his heart. As for this young lady, she was completely unaware of just how many times she had looked at Xiao Yan as she turned back time and time again. After recovering, Xiao Yan's expression did not change in the face of Tianying's words. However, he was extremely surprised in his heart. However, Xiao Yan's eyes rotated in the next moment. Before Xiao Yan could open his mouth, Murong Qianqian, who was in front, suddenly fell swiftly towards the mountain range below. The expressions on the faces of the few of them involuntarily became slightly startled when they saw this. After which, Xiao Yan immediately recovered. The expression on his face changed as his body moved. He instantly used the absolute sky steps under his feet. Following a wave of sharp rushing wind sound, Xiao Yan's body was like an arrow that pierced through the clouds as he swiftly flashed and arrived in front of the young lady. Only at this moment did Tianying's trio in the sky recover. They saw the familiar mountain forest below as well as Xiao Yan, who had already flashed in front of the young lady. The words that were about to reach their mouths were forcefully swallowed back in the next moment. Xiao Yan frowned tightly when he saw the young lady's lovely body falling rapidly. He could not help but feel some doubt in his heart. The young lady in front of him had clearly refined the medicinal pill. Why would she fall from the sky at this moment? Xiao Yan shook his head helplessly in his heart. He immediately stepped forward and caught the young lady, who was falling rapidly, in his embrace. This scene caused the corners of the mouths of the three people in the sky to twitch wildly. Ah! Feeling the warm and tender lovely body in his embrace, Xiao Yan did not have the time to check the injuries within the young lady's body when the young lady in his embrace suddenly let out a cry. Her tender lovely body struggled in Xiao Yan's embrace before she hurriedly escaped. After which, she furiously stared at Xiao Yan with her shapely eyebrows and a bright red color. "Rogue! What are you trying to do?" "Ugh!" The young lady's face. She. From the young lady's body to fall. Why was it that her body to fall from the sky? In the blink of an eye, she had to fall to fall to fall to. Xiao Yan took a look at this cave. It was actually built halfway up a towering mountain. Just in front of this cave, one would be able to see the sun rise and set for an entire day. It was enough to overlook half of the deep regions of the Shilin mountain range. With such a grand and imposing cave dwelling, it was not difficult to guess that among the three people, this cave dwelling definitely belonged to Sky Eagle. Haha, welcome Mr. Xiao Yan to my cave. While Xiao Yan was feeling surprised in his heart, Tianying's figure had unknowingly appeared on a stone platform not far away from Xiao Yan. At this moment, he was looking at Xiao Yan and Murong Chanqian with a smile. However, that smile appeared a little wretched in Xiao Yan's eyes. Behind him, the Flame Lion and Xiong Gang also descended. When Xiao Yan looked at them, he discovered that even the usually stern Xiong Gang had revealed a wretched smile that was exactly the same as the Tianying duo. Cough cough. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could only let out 2 awkward coughs. He turned his gaze only to discover that Murong Chanqian was still staring at Xiao Yan with a devouring look on her small face. This caused Xiao Yan to feel incomparably embarrassed in his heart. "Humph, stinking rogue." The young lady spat softly. Her eyes viciously cut at Xiao Yan. After which, she shifted her gaze away from him. Immediately, she shot towards Tianying. Tianying, who had a wretched smile on his face a moment ago, instantly changed his expression when he sensed Murong Chanqian's dark and stern gaze. He smiled at the young lady in a fawning manner and rubbed his hands together. Only then did he awkwardly say, "Young miss, if you don't open the door, I will get someone to stew you." The young lady's words had just sounded when not only Tianying, but even the Flame Lion and Xiong Gang by the side had a change in expression. They exchanged glances with each other and involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. In their hearts, they knew that this great ant in front of them was really angry. Tianying hurriedly took a couple of steps forward. He raised both of his hands and formed a couple of complicated seals. Only then did the thick and heavy stone door in front of them slowly open amidst a series of grinding sounds. When the stone door opened, what appeared in front of Xiao Yan's group was a deep tunnel. This tunnel was so large that it could allow dozens of people to walk side by side. Its height was also hundreds of feet high, causing one to feel intimidated at first glance. "Haha, Mr. Xiao Yan, please. Our residence is simple and crude. I wonder if my cave dwelling will be able to catch Mr. Xiao Yan's eye when compared to those palaces of yours." Tianying smiled and made an inviting gesture towards Xiao Yan. As for Murong Chanqian, she had already taken the lead to enter the cave dwelling when it opened. Xiao Yan shook his head and smiled when he heard Tianying's words. Such a majestic cave dwelling was actually described as simple and crude. How could these buildings, which were majestic in the eyes of humans, endure this? Haha, I don't really know much about these things. I have been outside for a long time, eating and sleeping in the open. It is fine as long as I have a place to stay. Why do I need to delve into whether it is grand or not? Xiao Yan smiled. Both of his eyes flickered slightly. Immediately, he stepped into the tunnel. Behind him, Tianying and the Flame Lion exchanged glances and smiled. Soon after, they also quickly stepped into the tunnel. The stone door was shut, but the tunnel was not dark. Instead, the entire tunnel was brightly lit under the gentle glow of numerous night pearls. After Tianying and the other two entered the tunnel, they immediately walked on either side of Xiao Yan. At this moment, Tianying and the other two had already viewed Xiao Yan as an expert of the same level as them. Even though his cultivation appeared to only be that of a 5-star half-martial emperor, the strength that he possessed was sufficient to make a 9-star half-martial emperor lower their head before him. The 4 of them walked side by side in the tunnel. In this majestic tunnel, a human's body was as tiny as an ant. As they walked forward, Xiao Yan secretly thought of something in his heart. Only after a long while did Xiao Yan raise his gaze. As he walked, he turned his gaze towards Tianying and asked, "Brother Tianying, can I start with you for my first request?" Chapter 468. In the deep tunnel, the footsteps of the four people paused as Xiao Yan's words were emitted. Tianying involuntarily raised his eyebrows when he heard Xiao Yan's words. He felt a little surprised in his heart. He originally thought that Xiao Yan would consider these three requests for a long time. However, he did not expect that Xiao Yan had already decided in such a short period of time. Tianying mused for a moment before he frowned slightly. He lifted his eyes to look at Xiao Yan and asked, "Mr. Xiao Yan, are you sure you don't want to reconsider?" Xiao Yan's face revealed a slight smile when he heard this. He nodded slightly before his eyes landed on Tianying's body. His pitch-black pupils were like a deep pool with a glint flickering deep within them. After which, Xiao Yan smiled and asked Tianying instead. "Haha, brother Tianying, you have yet to listen to me. Why are you advising me to reconsider first?" Haha, this is only my personal guess. Mr. Xiao Yan, please do not doubt me." The expression on Tianying's face immediately hardened when he heard Xiao Yan's words. He swiftly cupped his hands together towards Xiao Yan and laughed. From the previous scene, Tianying could already tell that the relationship between Xiao Yan and his little grandaunt was not ordinary. After all, if it was someone else who dared to hug her body, that person would definitely be torn to pieces by her. Why would she turn around and flee with a flushed face? A different thought involuntarily rose in Tianying's heart as he looked at Xiao Yan in front of him. If his little miss had not only taken a fancy to Xiao Yan's future potential but had also taken a fancy to him as a person, the identity of this black-robed young man in front of him would likely be extraordinary in the future. Hence, if he could build a good relationship with him now, perhaps he would be able to speak with him when they met in the future. Of course, Xiao Yan was naturally unaware of Tianying's thoughts at this moment. When he heard the latter's words, Xiao Yan smiled faintly and waved his hand gently, indicating that he did not mind. Soon after, he opened his mouth and laughed. "Haha, actually, I've already explained this matter to the three of you 3 months ago." The moment Xiao Yan's words left his mouth, Sky Eagle could not help but frown. He exchanged glances with Yen Shi and immediately understood. "Mr. Xiao Yan, you mean? I hope that the three of you can make way for me to pass through the Shilin mountain range." Tianying's trio knit their brows tightly in the face of this. Min Shang revealed a troubled expression. The three of them exchanged glances and quietly communicated with each other. After which, they looked at Xiao Yan. When he saw the expression on Tianying's face, Xiao Yan could not help but have a bad premonition in his heart. The expression on his face also changed slightly. "Mr. Xiao Yan, it is not that the three of us are unwilling to make way for you. However, the Shilin mountain range has its own rules. No one is allowed to step into the hinterland of the Shilin mountain range. This rule is something that even the three of us cannot break." Xiao Yan's originally frowning brows became even more twisted after Tianying's words sounded. Only then did he recall that Guyu had once told him 3 months ago that there was likely a Do D-class expert in the hinterland of the Shilin mountain range. Although Guyu did not say it clearly back then, Xiao Yan was certain that there was definitely an expert above the Do D-class in the hinterland of the Shilin mountain range. Otherwise, the so-called rules of this place would not restrict the three of them. While Xiao Yan was thinking of this in his heart, Tianying once again opened his mouth to Xiao Yan. The words from his mouth caused Xiao Yan to feel helpless. Moreover, Mr. Xiao Yan should have already discovered just how frightening the cold wind is after the collapse of the eastern wall. That thing is something that even the three of us brothers do not dare to guarantee that we will be able to enter the hinterland of the mountain range. Of course, it is not that we do not believe in your strength. However, that cold wind is not something that an ordinary thing can compare with. Mr. Xiao Yan must believe in this point. Xiao Yan did not doubt Tianying's words. After all, the frightening cold wind from 3 months ago was just like yesterday when he thought about it now. It was still fresh in his memory. Xiao Yan did not doubt that even if he used all his strength, it was likely that he would not be able to reach the middle of the hinterland of the Shilin mountain range, much less pass through it. Xiao Yan involuntarily knitted his brows tightly when he thought of this. He sighed helplessly in his heart. If he was unable to pass through the Shilin mountain range, wouldn't he be unable to reach the Western Wastelands region? Tianying and Yen Shi exchanged glances when they saw the worried expression on Xiao Yan's face. Their gazes shifted before they once again opened their mouths to speak to Xiao Yan. "Mr. Xiao Yan, actually, it is not that there is no way to solve this matter." Before the words from Tianying's mouth sounded, the expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly became one of joy. This kind of joy after being disappointed was something that one would find hard to come by. May I know if Brother Tianning has any ideas? If this matter is successful, Xiao Yan will definitely come and thank the three of you when I return in the future. Xiao Yan's face was filled with joy as he spoke in a serious voice with a smile as he ferociously cupped his hands together towards the three people in front of him. Haha, there is no need for Mr. Xiao Yan to do this. We are merely following young Mrs. Wishes. Of course, I'm afraid that we are unable to contribute much in this matter. Tianning also understood in his heart when he saw Xiao Yan actually reveal such an expression. This matter was likely quite important to Xiao Yan. Otherwise, it would not cause this usually calm black-robed young man in front of him to reveal such an expression. Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned when he heard Tianying's words. The three of them were the only experts in the depths of the Shilin mountain range. If this matter was not related to them, who else could it be? Hiss! In the next instant, Xiao Yan suddenly inhaled a breath of cool air. There was a startled expression on his face. Immediately, he seemed to have thought of something in his heart. A pair of pitch-black eyes were instantly lifted. Both of his eyes were widened as he stared at Tianning in front of him. His face was filled with surprise. Tianning immediately nodded and smiled when he saw this. In his heart, he knew that Xiao Yan had already guessed the answer. Hence, he did not beat around the bush and directly said, "That's right. This method is my young miss." Even though he already knew the answer in his heart, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth still involuntarily twitched when he heard Tianning personally say it. He originally thought that it would be fine as long as he brought this little girl here and the two of them would no longer have anything to do with each other. However, who would have thought that the most troublesome matter for him would ultimately still have to rely on this little girl? Xiao Yan felt helpless in his heart when he thought of this. His face involuntarily revealed an expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He really did not know whether he was lucky or unlucky to have met this little girl. Xiao Yan smiled helplessly. His heart immediately felt relieved. No matter how one put it, this matter could finally come to an end. Xiao Yan smiled in his heart. He lifted his eyes and looked towards the end of the tunnel. His feet moved and he once again walked forward. Behind him, Tianning and the other two exchanged glances with each other. A glint flashed across each of their eyes. Their bodies moved and followed behind. Chapter 469. At the end of the tunnel was a misty world. The entire space was filled with white fog. Following the arrival of Xiao Yan's group, the fog in front of the four of them automatically spread to the sides. A path that was built from stone platforms floating in the air appeared in front of Xiao Yan's group. "Haha, Mr. Xiao Yan, please." Xiao Yan involuntarily raised his eyebrows as he watched the scene in front of him with a surprised expression. At this moment, a faint laughter was emitted from Sky Eagle's mouth by the side. Xiao Yan smiled courteously upon hearing this. After which, he moved his feet and slowly walked forward. A moment later, as the fog scattered, a huge palace appeared in the depths of this space. The entire palace appeared grand and majestic, causing one to involuntarily exclaim in admiration upon seeing it. After the few of them entered the large hall, they still did not see Murong Chanqian's figure. It was likely that she had gone somewhere else. The few of them helplessly smiled at this. Due to the injuries within the flame lion's body, he had temporarily left this place with Xiong Gang. In the blink of an eye, only Xiao Yan and Sky Eagle remained in the spacious large hall. "Haha, may I ask Mr. Xiao Yan, the reason why you want to pass through the Shilin mountain range is to head to the Western Wastelands region?" The two of them had just taken their seats when Sky Eagle once again smiled and asked Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan smiled upon hearing this. However, he did not deny it. He nodded his head and replied, "Indeed. The reason why I want to pass through the Shilin mountain range is to head to the Western Wastelands region." Sky Eagle nodded his head and continued speaking. "I heard that the Western Wastelands region is the most chaotic place in the Western region. Of course, it is also a treasure ground." Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows slightly. He could not help but feel a little surprised. He only knew that it was a training ground. However, from Sky Eagle's gaze, it seemed that it was not just for this. From these words, it seems that Brother Sky Eagle is quite familiar with the Western Wastelands region. "Haha, I've been to the Western Desolation region in my early years as well. I must say that it is indeed a cultivation treasure land. Although it is a bit dangerous, it is precisely because of this that it is even more attractive. After all, A true expert is tempered through flesh and blood, and not something that can be achieved through peaceful cultivation. Xiao Yan nodded his head in response to Sky Eagle's words. Ever since he started cultivating, it had always been the same. He had seen too many disciples of aristocratic families. Even if they were successful in their cultivation, it would still be difficult for them to achieve greatness if they did not go through the tempering of battle. After all, no matter how good a piece of jade was, if it was not polished, it would be difficult for it to become a perfect piece of jewelry. It was even more so for people. Haha, Mr. Xiao Yan is young and promising. There is naturally no need for me to say more about this. However, there is something that I do not know if Mr. Xiao Yan understands. The reason why I said that the Western Desolation region is a treasure ground is not only because it is a cultivation treasure ground. At this point, Xiao Yan's body involuntarily straightened slightly. Xiao Yan did not know much about the Western Desolation region. If he could learn a little from Sky Eagle's mouth, it would naturally be good. I will not say too much about other matters. After all, the Western Desolation region is a place where good and bad people are mixed together. I am unable to say anything with certainty. Therefore, I am unable to explain too much to Mr. Xiao Yan. However, Mr. Xiao Yan should also know about the ancient tomb of Heaven's End. Ugh! Upon hearing a topic that was related to him, Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily paused for a moment. However, he felt a little disappointed in his heart. If it was only this kind of matter, it was likely that there was no need for him to understand. After all, ever since the ancient tomb of Heaven's End was discovered, no one knew anything about it. Therefore, even if Sky Eagle told Xiao Yan about it now, it was likely that it would merely be some information that was already known about from the outside world. Ancient Tomb of Heaven's End, huh? Who in the Western region does not know about this? Gently shaking his head, the thread of interest that had just been ignited in Xiao Yan's heart was immediately extinguished. Haha, Mr. Xiao Yan does not seem to think that I am able to give you any different information. Haha. At this moment, Sky Eagle, who was seated opposite Xiao Yan, smiled slightly. His face was filled with a smile as he stared at Xiao Yan. There was a different color that continuously flowed within his eyes. Oh, don't tell me that Brother Sky Eagle knows something else? Xiao Yan immediately raised his eyes when he heard Sky Eagle's laughter. Instantly, he looked at the other party. At the same time, a ripple involuntarily appeared in his emotionless eyes. If that was really the case, Xiao Yan would definitely not let go of even the smallest matter. Haha. I have indeed obtained some information regarding the ancient tomb of Heaven's End by chance. Of course, I am unable to confirm whether it is true or false. However, I believe that anyone who knows about this matter would rather believe it than not, so I have remembered it. Sky Eagle lowered his head slightly as he frowned slightly and pondered. Xiao Yan nodded slightly when he heard this. His ears carefully listened to every single word that Sky Eagle said, not daring to overlook anything at all. After all, this was related to the dwelling of a returnance expert. How could Xiao Yan be careless and not listen to it? According to my understanding at that time, after Tianju created the cave mansion, before he died, he turned his life's cultivation into inheritance and sealed it. Then, he divided it into 3 parts and placed them in the 3 halls of Tianju's ancient tomb. Xiao Yan's eyes immediately shone brightly when he heard this. He immediately became spirited. Xiao Yan had no doubt that he would be able to break through to the level of a Do-Di in an extremely short amount of time if he could obtain the legacy of a returnance expert. This temptation was just too great. Sky Eagle smiled when he saw the joy on Xiao Yan's face. He gently shook his head and continued, "There are 3 halls within the ancient tomb of Heaven's End. Outside the 3 halls, there is a layer of seal. Moreover, this seal is very special. It must be opened by Tianju's 3 famous skills. Once someone tries to use external force to break the seal, the result will be that the inheritance and other treasures inside will be destroyed along with it." Xiao Yan did not smile at all when he heard this. Instead, he could not help but frown. If that really was the case, he would definitely become the target of everyone. After all, 2 of the 3 great skills that made Tianju Shangren famous were in the hands of those 2 sections. Those ordinary experts would naturally not dare to easily become enemies with them. Once this was the case, Xiao Yan would need to be present if he wanted to undo the seal. At that time, even without the 4 great sects, Xiao Yan would still have a countless number of enemies standing in front of him. Xiao Yan helplessly sighed when he thought of this. He was just about to shake his head when Tianying once again opened his mouth. This time around, the expression on Xiao Yan's face once again changed after Tianying's word sounded. Chapter 470. Moreover, according to what I know, in addition to Shangren Tianjue's Genesis Qi inheritance, there is also Shangren Tianjue's spirit source power in the three great halls. Xiao Yan's expression changed the moment Tianying's words sounded. At this moment, Tianying lifted his eyes. A pair of azure eyes stared at Xiao Yan. His face was filled with a smile. You mean spirit source power? Although very surprised by this news, Xiao Yan could not help but ask. Relatively speaking, there would more or less be some strength inheritance within the cave dwelling of some experts. However, the spiritual source energy that Sky Eagle had mentioned was extremely rare. After all, the soul was the foundation of a living being. It was already considered a great favor for an ordinary expert to leave behind the inheritance of their strength at the end of their life. However, it was almost impossible for them to leave behind the power of their soul. When a person died, their soul would be extinguished. However, when a mortal died, their soul would follow them. This could be considered as the last thing that the deceased had left behind. Yet, he had actually left his soul origin energy in this world. This was clearly a deliberate act of giving away everything he had. Generally speaking, people who could do such a thing were generally seniors in some forces. Before they died, they would leave everything to their juniors so that they could improve the overall strength of their juniors. It could also be considered as a contribution to the future of the whole force. However, in the entire continent, the number of times that Tianju did such a thing was very few. That's right, it is spirit source power. Hee, I know that Mr. Xiao Yan is an alchemist, and your grade is definitely not low. Ordinary things naturally won't catch your eye, but if it's related to spirit source power, Mr. Xiao Yan will definitely not let it go so easily. Xiao Yan stared at the space in front of him. His fingertips under his sleeves gently rubbed the storage ring on his finger. A moment later, a glint flashed in his eyes and he nodded slightly at Tianying. He was indeed quite concerned about spirit source power. However, the main point was not for himself, but for Xiao Xian, who was still in the jade bottle and was only left with a remnant spirit. Tianying could not help raising his brows when he saw Xiao Yan's appearance. Soon after, he smiled again and did not think too much about it. Besides this, there is also the most precious thing in the tomb. The value of this thing can be said to be completely above Shangren Tianjue's inheritance. As his voice sounded, the expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed. His mouth was wide open and his eyes were wide open. His dark black eyes revealed a deep shock. The expression on his entire face appeared extremely interesting at this moment. Originally, Xiao Yan thought that this was all the information that Tianying had given him after hearing about what had happened earlier. It was unexpected that Tianying had actually thrown another heavy bomb at this moment. An item that was worth more than the lifetime legacy of a returnance expert could truly be regarded as a shocking treasure. Tianying could not help but smile when he saw the shock on Xiao Yan's face again. In reality, his expression was even more exaggerated than Xiao Yan's when he first received the news. I wonder what kind of accessory it is. How can it be worth more than Shangren Tianjue's inheritance? It was a long while later before Xiao Yan finally withdrew the emotions within his heart. He cupped his hands to Tianying and asked in a serious voice. Tianying casually waved his hand when he saw that. He frowned slightly and thought for a moment before saying, I don't know what it is. I don't remember exactly what that thing is, but I am certain that it is a cultivation method. That cultivation method is the source of Lord Tianju's strength. Ugh! Xiao Yan could not help but pout inside when he heard that. If it was some other treasure, he really might be tempted. However, no matter how heaven-defying it was, Xiao Yan would not be tempted by it if it was only a cultivation method. After all, having practiced the flame mantra, Xiao Yan was unable to raise the slightest interest in other qi methods. Tianying naturally did not discover the thoughts in Xiao Yan's heart. Hence, he merely paused for a moment before continuing to speak. Yeah, I remember the name of the cultivation method. It seems to be called the B- the returnance technique, and its grade seems to be quite high as well. It has reached the level of an intent tier cultivation method. This is what I learnt from the jade slip that I obtained the information from back then. However, I'm not sure how much of the information is true, but I do hope it's true. Hee. Xiao Yan nodded. He did not seem to care about this. No matter how precious the cultivation method was, it could not be compared to his blaze mantra. However, just as Xiao Yan was about to ignore it, Gu Yu, who was in his body, suddenly spoke. Brat, you have to ask more clearly whether that cultivation method is the returnance technique. Ha! Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed after Gu Yu's words sounded. He frowned and a surprise involuntarily rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked Gu Yu, Old Gu, do you know what the returnance technique is? Don't ask too much. When the time comes, you will naturally know. For you, there are only benefits and no disadvantages. But for now, it's best if you ask more about that cultivation method and confirm whether that cultivation method is the returnance art or not. Xiao Yan immediately felt a great curiosity towards this so-called returnance technique when he heard Gu Yu's solemn tone. This returnance technique was likely extraordinary if it was treated so seriously by someone like Gu Yu. At the same time, Tianning also saw the change in expression on Xiao Yan's face. Tianning could not help but feel suspicious when he saw the huge contrast in Xiao Yan's expression. At this moment, Xiao Yan once again asked Tianning. Brother Tianning, can you confirm what the name of that cultivation method is? Ugh! Tianning was stunned when he heard this. He frowned slightly and looked at Xiao Yan with a strange expression. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered when he saw this. He paused for a moment before he laughed dryly and said, Hee hee. It is just that I suddenly recalled that my master once had a friend. The cultivation method that he practiced seemed to be called the returnance technique. Now that I think about it, I feel curious. Tianying's eyes flickered when he heard Xiao Yan's words. He smiled and did not hide anything. He frowned and thought for a moment before he nodded and said with certainty, That's right. That's right. If the news is true, then this cultivation technique should be the origin returning technique. Tianying's words had just sounded when he seemed to have recalled something. He hurriedly opened his mouth and said to Xiao Yan, That's right. That's right. In addition, the jade slip I obtained at that time also mentioned that this cultivation method can allow people below the half-step emperor realm to cultivate without any bottlenecks. Although I don't know if this can be confirmed, this is the most information I know. As for the other information, I'm afraid you can only wait until the ancient tomb opens before you can understand it yourself. Xiao Yan slowly nodded when he heard Tianying's words. At the same time, he confirmed with Gu Yu in his heart. A moment later, a soft yes was emitted from Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was still unclear about the so-called returnance technique, Xiao Yan never doubted Gu Yu's words. Chapter 471. During the next few days, Xiao Yan continued to stay within Tianying's cave dwelling. Murong Qianqian and the Tianning trio had also temporarily undertaken a retreat due to their injuries. Only Xiao Yan remained within this extravagant cave dwelling. There was a stone platform suspended within the misty fog. Xiao Yan was seated cross-legged on it. Both of his hands formed a training seal. The flame art chi method within his body was swiftly circulating. Wave after wave of powerful natural energy swiftly gathered towards Xiao Yan. This stone platform was originally the stone platform that Tianning usually used for training. Since it had been chosen by him, the natural energy gathered around this stone platform was naturally extremely dense. Following Tianying's retreat, this place was taken advantage of by Xiao Yan. After a period of training, Xiao Yan once again opened his eyes. His aura had also reached its peak condition. Xiao Yan's seated body moved slightly. He could even sense a faint energy ripple spreading from the empty space around him. Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air. He stretched his body a little. Immediately, he began to measure his battle with the Tianning trio. The Sky Absolute Step had reached the advanced wind movement stage. It must be said that this was a great help to the current Xiao Yan. With the Sky Absolute Step, there was definitely no one below the Do D class who could compare with Xiao Yan's speed. Additionally, Xiao Yan's frightening fighting strength had surpassed his own. Just like how the big battle with the Tianning trio had reflected, Xiao Yan no longer feared anyone below the Do D class. This time around, he could completely rely on his own strength. There was even no need for the Northern King to intervene. It must be said that the current Xiao Yan was already not inferior to a 9-star bandit just by relying on his own fighting strength. Of course, even though this was the case, Xiao Yan's heart still contained an incomparable pressure. After all, what he was about to face was not as simple as a mere bandit. Within the 4 great sects, there were many 9-star bandits and there was no lack of genuine elite Do D. If he was unable to raise his strength as soon as possible, relying on his fighting strength alone would not be a long-term solution. Hence, only true strength would be able to help Xiao Yan avoid a calamity. If he wanted to obtain strength as quickly as possible, there was only one path he could take. The Ice Spirit Pill. Although Xiao Yan did not wish to lose Guyu, who had accompanied him for many years like a teacher and friend, it was just as Guyu had said. This was his responsibility. Even Xiao Yan could not shirk it. Ugh! Xiao Yan sighed softly with a complicated emotion. Only then did he stand up. He thought for a moment in his heart before his body moved and flew out of the Sky Eagle's mansion. A short moment later, Xiao Yan's body had already appeared in front of a volcano. The height of this volcano was not any lower than Tianying's mountain. The area within a few hundred kilometers of this volcano was bright red in color. Magma flowed out from the cracks around the volcano, turning into a magma river that slowly flowed into the distance. Occasionally, there would be a cluster of huge bubbles surging out from the magma. After which, they would explode and release a hot gas, causing the temperature of this place to become increasingly frightening. Standing above the mouth of the volcano, Xiao Yan was still able to sense the frightening temperature and wild and violent energy contained within the magma despite being 1,000 feet away. Of course, this was naturally not worth mentioning to Xiao Yan. He, who possessed a heavenly flame, was completely indifferent to this little bit of magma placed in front of him. Even the bottom of the magma, which appeared impossible for others to enter, was like an uninhabited place to Xiao Yan. That's right. The objective of Xiao Yan's trip this time around was to reach the bottom of this volcano. More accurately speaking, it should be the flame lion at the bottom of this volcano. The corners of Xiao Yan's mouth slowly revealed a smile as he looked at the volcano below. After which, his body moved and he had already appeared above the hot magma in a lightning-like manner. Xiao Yan once again smiled as he looked at the hot magma under his feet. He waved his large hand and the heavenly flame in his palm emitted a puff sound as it rose. A thought passed through his mind and the heavenly flame also began to churn. At the same time, the hot magma under Xiao Yan's feet swiftly parted, opening a straight path for Xiao Yan to head downwards. Xiao Yan ceased hesitating. His body moved and the sky extinction step was instantly used. His body swiftly rushed down towards the bottom of the magma. A long while later, Xiao Yan directly flew a distance of nearly 10,000 feet towards the bottom of the magma. Only then did a glaring Do Chi light barrier appear in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. I've arrived. With a smile in his heart, Xiao Yan's descending speed suddenly increased. In the blink of an eye, he had appeared outside of the light barrier. At this moment, the flame lion, who was training cross-legged at a certain spot within the light barrier, also sensed Xiao Yan's aura. Immediately, he involuntarily frowned slightly and withdrew from his training state. Only then did a thought pass through his mind. At the same time, the Do Chi light barrier in front of Xiao Yan automatically parted to form a path that only one person could pass through. Xiao Yan took a step forward and entered it. Haha, it is unexpected that Brother Xiao Yan would actually come to this boring and vexed place of mine. May I know what advice you have for me? The flame lion's deep and bold laughter was immediately transmitted over like thunder the moment they met. The flame lion was a straightforward person. After a couple of clashes, he had not only treated Xiao Yan as an expert of the same level but also as a friend. Hence, he was naturally not as restrained as he was at the beginning when he spoke to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan did not dislike the flame lion's tone. Instead, he felt that this would allow him to get along better with the latter. After laughing a few times in response to the latter, Xiao Yan finally inhaled a deep breath of air. He lifted his gaze to look at the flame lion in front of him and said with a smile, Haha, that's right. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a reason. The reason why I have come this time is indeed because I need old brother Flame Lion's help. Hearing Xiao Yan call him old brother, the Flame Lion immediately felt a wave of comfort in his heart. He laughed loudly and said, Since there is something, Brother Xiao Yan can just say it. Moreover, young Miss has also said that as long as you can bring it up and we can do it, we will definitely help. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could not help but laugh once again. However, the expression on his face quickly recovered. After musing for a moment, Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air and said, From what I can see, old brother Flame Lion's flame energy is blessed by nature. I think that this volcano should have quite a long history. Xiao Yan's words paused for a moment. The Flame Lion nodded his head and indicated for Xiao Yan to continue. Therefore, I want to ask if old brother Flame Lion has the few things that I need. Hearing this, the Flame Lion's eyebrows involuntarily twitched. Immediately, he smiled in relief. His hands were placed on his waist as he laughed loudly at Xiao Yan. Haha, I have almost forgotten. Brother Xiao Yan is an alchemist. Since that is the case, Brother Xiao Yan can just say whatever you want. I don't have anything else here, but as long as it is of the fire attribute, whether it is medicinal ingredients that are over 1,000 years old or flame crystals that are a few hundred years old, I can easily find a few of them for you. Hee, it is not that I am boasting to you. As long as you can name it, I guarantee that I can basically take it out for you. In terms of medicinal ingredient storage, even if Tianing and Xionggang were to add up, they would not necessarily have as much as me. Haha. After boasting, the Flame Lion's face actually revealed a proud expression. Seeing this, Xiao Yan immediately sighed in relief. Although he had come with a goal this time around, he did not dare to guarantee that the few things that he was looking for would really be found here by the Flame Lion. However, hearing the latter's words at this moment, a little excitement surged in Xiao Yan's heart. After organizing his words in his heart, Xiao Yan looked at the Flame Lion in front of him with a surprised expression. He cupped his hands together and opened his mouth to speak with a smile. In that case, I will first thank old brother Flame Lion here. After expressing his thanks, Xiao Yan no longer hesitated. He told the Flame Lion about the medicinal ingredients that he needed, as well as the few special flame crystals that he needed to refine the incarnation. Lava fruit, blazing flame essence vine. However, as Xiao Yan continued to speak one after another, the expression on the Flame Lion's face changed from the relaxed and pleased expression in the beginning to a dull and stupefied expression in the end.